Chapter 103. Feng Nu smiled bitterly and said, I am afraid of you. Elder Feng Kong is very good to me. He treated me like a father since I was young. This time, I ran away from my hometown to come here for you. They chased after me from thousands of miles away, but they were forced to leave. I am afraid that the elders will feel bad, and I am also afraid that they will not be willing to accept you. Nianbing, can you understand my heart? For me, my clansmen are equally important. Nianbing nodded and said, Feng Nu, I understand the responsibility in your heart, but don't think so much. This matter will be solved sooner or later. I will let you go back to the Feng people, but I won't let them take you back like this. Promise me, don't go, okay? He was really afraid that when he woke up from meditation, Feng Nu would already be gone. Feng Nu looked deeply at Nianbing and nodded gently. Rongbing smiled and said, Nianbing, the book I gave you today is the one I selected and copied. Together with the previous one, it should be enough for you. Yesterday, grandfather just looked for me and asked me to go into seclusion for a month to prepare for the upcoming competition. I am afraid I can't come to see you during this time. However, you can rest assured about the safety here. I think, even without me, grandfather will never let outsiders hurt his own people in the capital city. Well, I will go first. You two have a good time. After saying that, he turned and left. Looking at Rongbing's back, Nianbing couldn't help but murmur, Brother, thank you. He certainly understood Rongbing's meaning. He wanted to use the power of the Rong family to protect them. If Nianbing was alone, he would never accept such kindness. However, now there was also Feng Nu. He was most afraid that Feng Nu would be taken away by Feng Kong, so he could only acquiesce to Rongbing's intention. He held Feng Nu's hand and went back to the room. Back in the room, Feng Nu was still a little sad. Nianbing hugged her and comforted her for a long time before she felt better. Nianbing, didn't you say you had something to tell me? Now that no one is here, you can speak. Feng Nu remembered what had happened before. Nianbing smiled indifferently and said, Actually, it's nothing. I was just teasing you. I just wanted to ask what you want to eat today so that I can cook for you. Feng Nu, what's with that look in your eyes? It's so scary. Don't pinch me. I didn't want to tease you. In the midst of Nianbing's jokes, Feng Nu finally came out of her previous sadness. At this time, Nianbing had already decided not to help Feng Nu with the blood test. First of all, he hoped that Feng Nu could live here happily for a while and accompany him. Although this was out of selfishness, it was also to prevent Feng Nu from being caught by Feng Kong. In fact, if he wanted to participate in the magician tournament, he could only leave after the tournament ended. After the tournament ended, he would tell Feng Nu about this matter. If Feng Nu was really Yurian's daughter, then he would personally escort Feng Nu to Yurian. As long as Yurian was there, Feng Nu's safety was guaranteed. Considering this, he decided not to say it for the time being. There was still more than a month's time. During this time, he wanted to live with Feng Nu without any worries. Sure enough, as Rongbing said, after Elder Feng Kong and the others were driven away, Feng Nu and Nianbing were no longer harassed by the Feng people. The two's life began to become regular. Every morning, the two would wake up from their cultivation state at the same time. They would go out to buy groceries together, stroll around the city hand in hand, and only return to the hotel at noon. Nianbing personally cooked lunch. Every day, Nianbing would cook delicious food for Feng Nu to make her happy. After lunch, Nianbing would force Feng Nu to take a nap. He told Feng Nu that if a girl took a nap, it would be very good for her beauty. Feng Nu couldn't persuade him and had to sleep. At first, she wasn't used to it, but after more than 10 days, if she didn't take a nap at noon, Feng Nu would feel sleepy instead. Under Nianbing's care, Feng Nu became more and more beautiful. At noon, after Feng Nu went to sleep, Nianbing would begin to study the magic book that Rongbing gave him. During this time, perhaps because Feng Nu was by his side, he found that his perception was more sensitive than before. Some difficult problems could be solved as long as he carefully thought about it. He even used various methods to repair several broken ancient magic formations. When Feng Nu woke up, the two would walk out of the hotel together and find a quiet place to watch the sunset. Whenever this happened, neither of them would speak and enjoy the tranquility that wasn't very long. They both had a feeling that when they watched the sunset, their hearts seemed to be connected. They didn't need to speak and could understand each other's feelings. After returning to the hotel, Nian Bing personally cooked for them. The two of them ate a delicious meal and then began the most important training of the day. Nian Bing meditated while Feng Nu cultivated Do Qi. Although they didn't say it clearly, Feng Nu always maintained a clear state of mind to protect Nian Bing. This allowed him to cultivate without worry. Time passed very quickly. Good times were always like this. More than a month's time quickly passed. Nian Bing and Feng Nu were already used to each other's existence. Every day, as soon as they opened their eyes, they could see each other. This made their hearts exceptionally satisfied, as if this was enough. It was as if they were the only ones in the world. Nian Bing, it's time to register today. Rong Bing's voice sounded from outside the door. Nian Bing just woke up from her meditation state. She was looking at Feng Nu, who was still meditating, when she heard her brother's voice. She couldn't help but secretly laugh. Brother came really early. She quietly got up, afraid to wake up Feng Nu. She opened the door and walked out. Shoo, brother, let's go outside and talk. Feng Nu is still meditating. Rong Bing changed into a brand new white robe today. It was spotless. He smiled and nodded his head. The two of them turned and walked out of the hotel. Nian Bing, looking at your appearance, you seem to be living a very comfortable life. Your complexion is really good. A man with a woman is really different. Rong Bing saw Nian Bing and couldn't help but want to make fun of him. Nian Bing bitterly smiled and said, Brother, when did you become so gossipy? Just now I heard you say at the door that you're going to register today. Is the competition tomorrow? Rong Bing was stunned for a moment and said, You brat, you're really indulging in too much pleasure. Don't you know that the day after tomorrow is the day of the competition? Today is the last day of registration. If you don't register on time, you'll be disqualified. Nian Bing scratched his head and said, I really don't know the specific day of the competition. I originally wanted to inquire about it, but these few days the feeling of meditation was good, so I forgot. Rong Bing rolled his eyes and said, You're really good. What meditation? I think you're clearly doing it because of Feng Nu. But brother, I have to warn you. Although you're still young, you have to pay attention to your body. It's not good to exercise too much in bed. Nian Bing snappily said, Brother, you seem to know a lot. Feng Nu and I are pure. Don't tell me you and sister-in-law have already. Rong Bing knocked on his head and said, What sister-in-law? Enoch and I haven't married yet. Don't talk nonsense. Let's go. If we can't make it in time for registration, what are you going to compete for? Nian Bing and Rong Bing, the two brothers, sped up and walked towards the city. While walking, Rong Bing said to Nian Bing, This 5 countries' new magician competition will be held in the Imperial Palace. This is not just an ordinary competition. It's an important opportunity to show the strength of each country. Nian Bing said in surprise, It's held in the Imperial Palace. Don't tell me it's not open to the public? Rong Bing said, Of course it's not open to the public. Otherwise, with so many powerful magicians, if they accidentally hurt the poor people, it will inevitably bring a lot of casualties. The competition will be held in a special place. At that time, the elites of the Empire's Magician Corps will jointly lay down a barrier to ensure the safety of the competition. Moreover, this kind of competition will be personally watched by Emperor Hua Tian. Cheer for me. Nian Bing nodded and said, Then who is the other participant from the Huarong Empire? Rong Bing said, Because of the age limit of 25, The other participant from the Huarong Empire is also from our Rong family. Moreover, you are very familiar with this person. In our third generation, his reputation is second only to mine. You should know who he is, right?" A cold light flashed in Yan Bing's eyes. She immediately recalled the past events of her childhood. At that time, in their generation, although Rong Bing was the oldest, the age difference between his peers was very small. Among them, there were 7 or 8 who were the same age as Rong Bing. Among them, Prince Rong's second North, who was also the eldest grandson of Rong Bing's second grandfather, was the most outstanding. His name was Rong Ji. Rong Ji was only a month younger than Rong Bing. Since childhood, he was very cold to others. No matter who it was, he would not speak to them in the slightest. He only knew how to diligently practice magic every day. The reason why Nian Bing had such a deep impression of him was because when he was young, he happened to meet a few of his third grandfather's grandchildren when he was playing. Those few third generations of the Rong family were very disdainful of Nian Bing's identity and scolded him as a bastard. Nian Bing angrily fought with them. However, although they were the same age, the other party had the advantage in numbers. How could he win? Fortunately, Rong Ji passed by. Rong Ji did not say much. With his strength, which had long entered the magical domain, he used a fireball to scare away those few children. When Nian Bing thanked him, he ignored him and left. From then on, among his peers, except for Rong Bing, Nian Bing did not have any bad feelings for Rong Ji. He came back to his senses from the memory. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Is it Rong Ji? He's not as cold as he looks. He just doesn't like to talk." Rong Bing smiled and said, "That guy is a blockhead. However, he is much more hard-working than me. It's just that he has always been taught magic by his second grandfather. I don't know what level he has reached now. Maybe it's even higher than that. If you meet him, you must be careful. Rong Ji is extremely belligerent. Once he fights with his opponent, his craziness is enough to make his opponent tremble. Before you came, my biggest opponent in this competition, other than the representative of the Ice God Tower, was probably this brother of mine." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I really hope to meet Rong Ji. It would be good for me to be able to exchange pointers with him." Although he was very confident about this magic competition, he definitely did not want his opponent to be weak. If that was the case, what was the point of the competition? Only by competing with experts would he be able to better improve his strength. After a few battles with experts, Nian Bing had already understood the principle behind this. In the distance, the magnificent palace was already in front of them. The vermilion walls of the palace were 3 zhang high. On the walls there was a guard every 2 zhang. On the surface, the palace's defense was much stronger than that of Prince Rong's residence. When they arrived at the entrance of the palace, Nian Bing found that there was a table on the right side of the entrance. On both sides of the table, there were 8 mighty soldiers. There was a person sitting behind the table. This person was thin and small. The official robes on him looked very big, but he deliberately put on a very impressive appearance. Rong Bing gave Nian Bing a look. Nian Bing immediately understood that this was the place to register. The 2 brothers strode towards the table. As soon as they got close, they were immediately stopped by the soldiers on both sides. "How dare you? You bunch of idiots, don't you even recognize little Prince Rong?" The thin official hurriedly stood up and walked around the table to greet them. He didn't even look at Nian Bing. His face was full of flattery as he looked at Rong Bing and said, "Little Prince, how come you have time to come here? Contestants from our country don't have to come here to register." Rong Bing coldly said, "I'm not registering for myself. I brought a friend. He's also participating in this competition." Only then did the official look at Nian Bing. Although Nian Bing used a brooch to change her appearance and hair color, her tall and straight figure and noble temperament were not something an ordinary person could compare to. Nian Bing slightly brushed her hand and said, "Hello, I'm here to register." As she said that, she took out her number plate from her space ring. When the official saw the number 10 on the number plate, he couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. He looked at Nian Bing, then looked at Rong Bing, then asked tentatively, "Are you representing the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "That's right. I'm representing the Ice Moon Empire's Guild. Is there a problem?" No. Because Nian Bing was brought here by Rong Bing, the official was especially polite to him. However, when he took the number plate and walked towards his table, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, "How strange. The Rong family is obviously the archenemy of the Ice Moon Empire. Why would little Prince Rong bring the number plate of the Ice Moon Empire's Guild to register?" Soon, the registration was finished. The official told Nian Bing the time and format of the competition. This time, the competition would be divided into two groups. Under the premise that two contestants from each country would not be in the same group, they would draw lots and be divided into groups 1 and 2. After that, they would compete in a round robin. Each contestant would have to fight against the other 4 contestants in their group. In the end, the top 2 contestants of each group would compete in the finals. The finals would be a single elimination. The first contestant of the first group would fight against the second contestant of the second group, and the first contestant of the second group would fight against the second contestant of the first group. The 2 finals would determine the final ranking, and new number plates would be given out according to the results of all the competitions. Nian Bing wasn't interested in the number plate of the last competition. He only knew that the number plate that would return to him this time definitely wouldn't be the number 10. After the registration, Rong Bing smiled and said, "The porridge pot from last time was good, right? Today, I'll take you to another restaurant to eat. This time, it's still porridge. However, you'll be eating porridge directly this time. The taste is just as special." Nian Bing smiled and said, "That's good. However, brother, I have to go back and call Feng Nu first." Rong Bing smiled and said, "Of course. Otherwise, you won't be able to eat properly." At this moment, a sudden voice startled Nian Bing. "Nian Bing, why are you here?" This voice was filled with surprise. When Nian Bing raised his head to look, he couldn't help but realize that the person who had come was someone he didn't want to see. 3 carriages arrived in front of them under the protection of a small group of Ice Moon Empire soldiers. The one at the front was the 7th prince of the Ice Moon Empire, Yan Feng. Yan Feng's gaze wasn't on him. He was looking at Rong Bing. Rong Bing knew that Yan Feng had misunderstood again. He subconsciously glanced at Nian Bing, and Nian Bing gave him a look. Although the 2 brothers hadn't been reunited for long, they had already formed a very good tacit understanding. Rong Bing immediately understood what Nian Bing meant. His face returned to its usual coldness as he said indifferently, "Who are you?" Yan Feng was stunned and said, "Nian Bing, don't you recognize me? I'm Yan Feng. The clothes you're wearing today are really handsome." Rong Bing said coldly, "I'm afraid you've got the wrong person. I'm not Nian Bing. My surname is Rong." As he said this, he raised his hand and pointed at the golden lion symbol on his left chest. When Yan Feng saw the roaring posture of the golden lion, his heart suddenly trembled and his face changed. You're from the Rong family? You're really not Nian Bing?" Rong Bing glanced at the carriage behind Yan Feng. "You're here to sign up on behalf of the Ice God Tower, right?" At this moment, a cold and indifferent voice came from the carriage. "Your Highness, he's really not Nian Bing. Look at his hand." Hearing this voice, Nian Bing and Rong Bing were shocked at the same time. This cold voice sounded so moving, but it carried a chill from the bottom of their hearts. More importantly, this voice had pointed out the difference between Rong Bing and Nian Bing. Nian Bing subconsciously put her hand into her sleeve. Yan Feng's eyes fell on Rong Bing's hand. Indeed, although Rong Bing's hand was also slender, it was less powerful than Nian Bing's hand. It was also less smooth. If one didn't observe carefully, it would be difficult to distinguish. Yan Feng nodded. He turned around and saluted to the carriage. "Thank you for your guidance, Miss Bingyun." After that, he turned around and said to Rongbing, "I'm really sorry, I've got the wrong person. However, you really look like a friend of mine." Rongbing didn't say anything and walked back with Nianbing. When they passed by the 3 carriages, they couldn't help but take a deep look at the ice flower symbol. They all knew that the strongest opponent in this new magician competition was in this carriage. After leaving the palace, Rongbing frowned from time to time. As they walked, Nianbing asked, "Brother, what do you think of the girl in the carriage just now? Her name seems to be Bingyun. Why didn't you recognize that friend just now?" Nianbing smiled bitterly. "That is indeed my friend. However, I'm really afraid of him. I'm not afraid of him as a person, but I'm afraid of his special hobby." Rongbing looked at Nianbing in surprise. "What special hobby?" Nianbing smiled bitterly. "Isn't it the same as that demon General Arclight?" Rongbing was stunned for a moment before he burst out laughing. He was laughing so hard that he was swaying back and forth. He only stopped when Nianbing coughed a few times. He chuckled softly and said, "It seems like being handsome isn't a good thing. It's no wonder that she likes you." Nianbing said, "Now I've changed my appearance, but your appearance is the same as mine. Brother, you have to be careful. Maybe he'll fall in love with someone else. He has a nickname, Yen Juhua." After saying that, she looked at Rongbing's gradually changing expression and continued, "Actually, Yen Feng is a very good person other than his special hobby. Although he's a prince, he doesn't have any arrogance. Although he seems to be 1,000 miles away, I can see the loneliness in his heart. He's the Ice Moon Empire's 7th prince. This time, he's personally escorting the Ice God Tower's contestants, not because the Ice Moon Empire attaches great importance to the competition, but because he's avoiding the internal conflicts within the Ice Moon Empire's royal family." Rongbing was moved. In the face of great power, he can stay out of it. This person isn't simple. It's not easy to see through fame and fortune. Nianbing smiled. "Brother, when I met Yen Feng a few days ago, I heard him say that the one representing the Ice God Tower is called Bingyun. She's called 1,000 Illusions. According to my feeling, she's probably a magic shooter. She's definitely not easy to deal with. If you meet her, you must be careful." Qianhuan Bingyun. From her title, it can be seen that her control of magic must be unique. It won't be easy for us to win. However, you shouldn't be weaker than her in terms of magic transformations. Even if I can't do it, there's still you. Nianbing smiled. "I'll work hard." "Brother, didn't you say you wanted to eat porridge? Let's go." The two returned to the inn and called Feng Nu. Under the guidance of Rongbing, they walked towards the south of the city. Nianbing naturally took Feng Nu's hand. As long as he was with Feng Nu, his face would become unusually soft. Feng Nu's moist little hand was very warm. In terms of temperature, it was much higher than his hand. Holding it was like holding a piece of warm jade, constantly warming Nianbing's hand. At the same time, it also warmed his heart. Previously, when Feng Nu heard that Rongbing wanted to take her and Nianbing to eat, she was very excited. These days, although she and Nianbing often wandered around the city, after all, they weren't familiar with the Huarong Empire. After getting used to eating Nianbing's food, there were very few things that could arouse Feng Nu's interest. Her left hand was naturally held by Nianbing. Her right hand was holding the godly sword of blazing heaven that never left her side. Bathed in the sunlight, Feng Nu thought to herself, "How good would it be if I could be with Nianbing like this every day?" "Brother, what are the characteristics of the porridge we're going to eat today? Why don't you introduce it to us?" Nianbing smiled at Rongbing and asked. Rongbing glanced at Nianbing and Feng Nu holding hands and felt a wave of comfort in his heart. Today, this restaurant not only has good porridge. Moreover, they also have special skills that are even more delicious. "Oh right, Nianbing. My dad wants me to tell you that after this competition, I'll take you to see him. He said that he's afraid that he'll affect your last few days of cultivation, so he won't see you for the time being. Nian Bing heard Rong Bing mention her uncle. Her heart immediately warmed. Her uncle and father were twins. Seeing her uncle was like seeing her own father. When she thought of her father, Nian Bing's eyes couldn't help but reveal a strong hatred. Rong Bing saw Nian Bing's eyes and naturally knew what she was thinking. He hurriedly said, "Guess what the restaurant I'm taking you to today is best at besides porridge?" Feng Nu tightened her grip on Nian Bing's hand and said, "Could it be steamed buns?" Usually, steamed buns and porridge are sold together. Although she was guessing, her eyes were looking at Nian Bing with concern. Rong Bing saw that something was wrong with Nian Bing, so how could she not see it? Nian Bing felt Feng Nu's concern and smiled slightly. "I'm fine. I just thought of my father. Brother, am I right?" Rong Bing patted Nian Bing's shoulder and said, "Of course you're wrong. If it were just steamed buns, I wouldn't have asked you to guess. Let me tell you, they are good at pancake wrap. The price is not cheap." Originally, Nian Bing's heart was still a bit sad, but when he heard about pancake wraps, his eyes lit up. He was most interested in food that he had never heard of. Feng Nu said, "Big brother, what is pancake wraps? Fish have bones. Don't tell me this fish doesn't have bones? Otherwise, how can it be rolled?" Rong Bing smiled and said, "Of course there are bones. However, their cooking method is very special. Although there are bones, there are no bones. When we reach the place, you'll know when you eat it. Move aside, move aside." A somewhat crazy voice accompanied by an ear-piercing grinding sound rang out. Before Nian Bing could react, she was pulled to the side by Feng Nu. Feng Nu's other hand pulled Rong Bing at the same time. Just as they moved aside, in an instant, a luxurious carriage rushed past them at lightning speed. For a moment, the main road was in a mess, and screams could be heard continuously. The carriage was pulled by 4 fine horses. The body of the carriage was dark green, and the decorations on it were extremely luxurious. The edges of the carriage were inlaid with gold, and even the curtains were gold. Although the carriage was very fast, the body of the carriage looked very stable. It was obviously a high-class carriage. A cold light flashed in Rong Bing's eyes when he was almost hit by the carriage. He said indifferently, "I've never seen anyone who dares to be so arrogant in capital Sky City." As soon as he finished speaking, he casually threw out a fireball and chased after the carriage. Rong Bing was the winged Chu of the 3rd generation of the Rong family since he was young. He and Nian Bing had very different views in some aspects. It was definitely not Rong Bing's style not to fight back after being offended. In capital Sky City, he did not need to think too much. Even the imperial family could not do anything to him. Just as the fireball was about to hit the carriage, a layer of light green light suddenly appeared behind the carriage. With a puff, the fireball was quietly extinguished in the light green light, and not even a spark splashed. Rong Bing's heart skipped a beat. Although it was an ordinary fireball technique, the fireball was quickly compressed when it was released, and its explosive power was extremely strong. However, it was dissolved so easily. What's more, his opponent obviously didn't use combat chi. Green light? What kind of magic was that? After the carriage ran for dozens of meters, it stopped, and the coachman jumped down from the carriage. He was a burly man, and there were wrinkles on his fierce-looking face. With a fierce look in his eyes, he walked a few steps to the back of the carriage and looked at the main street. He shouted loudly, "Who is it? Which blind bastard was it?" Rong Bing walked out slowly and said indifferently, "It's your grandfather." The burly man was stunned. "My grandfather? My grandfather isn't here." Rong Bing said coldly, "Isn't your grandfather standing here? It's embarrassing to have a grandson like you." His words caused the onlookers to burst into laughter. The burly man realized that Su Ke was scolding him, and he immediately shouted angrily, "You tricked me!" He took a step forward and appeared in front of Rong Bing in an instant. His huge fist suddenly hit Rong Bing's body. A hint of coldness appeared in Rong Bing's eyes. He did not move, and a layer of faint red light came out of his body. Although the burly man's speed surprised him, he did not take this burly man seriously, as he had experienced countless real battles under Prince Rong's training. Just as the burly man's fist was about to reach him, a scorching flame suddenly rose up. The flame did not spread, but condensed into a huge shield, blocking in front of Rong Bing. With a bang, the burly man's fist bombarded the fire shield, and the flames swept in the direction of the attack. The burly man roared, and his body flew back at an even faster speed than before. However, many parts of his body were burned by the flames, and his whole body was charred black. Rong Bing stretched out his right hand, and a red flame emerged from his palm. The color of the flame gradually changed from red to blue as he chanted a spell. He was attacked in the middle of the street. With his status, even if he killed someone, it was not a big deal. The burly man's body emitted a layer of yellow dough chi. In his anger, he pulled out a broad axe from behind his back. His dough chi covered his whole body. Just as he was about to rush forward, a voice suddenly sounded. "Stop, Ah Si, you are too presumptuous." Two people came down from the carriage, a man and a woman. Both of them were wearing green magic robes without any labels. The man's appearance was ordinary, but he exuded a noble temperament. The woman's appearance was very beautiful, and she looked to be about 20 years old. Her long green hair fell to her waist, and her dark green eyes revealed a curious look. She was staring at Rong Bing, and she held a small magic staff in her hand. The one who spoke was the man, and he had a smile on his face as he walked forward with the woman. When the coachman saw the man and woman, he quickly bowed. "Young master, young miss." The man walked in front of Rong Bing, and his gaze paused on the golden lion on his chest. His expression did not change as he said, "I'm really sorry, my subordinate was presumptuous. This one is Mu Rong, and this is my younger sister, Mu Jing." Rong Bing coldly looked at Mu Rong in front of him, and said indifferently, "People with the surname Mu are extremely rare. Your Excellency must be from the Longmu Empire. Wood magic, a mutation of earth magic, seems to be something only the imperial family of the Longmu Empire can do. I don't know if my guess is wrong." Chapter 104. Surprise flashed through Mu Rong's eyes. Mu Jing looked at Rong Bing with a little more approval, as if she was very interested in this handsome young man in front of her. Mu Rong said calmly, "Yes, my brother and sister are from the Longmu Empire. Looking at the mark on your chest, you should be from the Rong family." Nian Bing and Feng Nu had already arrived in front of Rong Bing at this time. When Mu Jing saw Feng Nu, her dark green beauty couldn't help showing a trace of jealousy. Mu Rong's eyes were shining brightly. Rong Bing said indifferently, "This is Du Tian City, and also the capital of the Huarong Empire. Your carriage is so rampant in Du Tian City. Are you looking down on my Huarong Empire?" Mu Rong smiled and said, "I'm really sorry, we are in a hurry. If we are late, we are afraid that we will miss the registration." Nian Bing's heart moved, and she said, "So, you are representing the Longmu Empire to participate in this new magician competition?" Mu Jing said, "Yes, my brother and I are here to participate in the competition. Since you are from the Rong family, are you contestants?" Rong Bing said indifferently, "We will meet in the competition. But before that, if your carriage is like before, I'm afraid you won't be able to participate in the competition." Mu Jing said with slight anger, "We are representing the Longmu Empire, you should be more polite." Rong Bing would not be confused by the beauty of the other side. "I'm already very polite, otherwise, I wouldn't have used a fireball just now." "Presumptuous, who are you? How dare you talk to our young master like that?" Ah Si, who had retreated to the side, rushed up. Rong Bing didn't even look at him, and said to Mu Rong indifferently, "Your dog is barking." Without waiting for Mu Rong to speak, Ah Si roared, releasing his battle chi, and suddenly swung his axe at Rong Bing. This time, it was Nian Bing who attacked. She rubbed her right hand, and red and blue light floated out at the same time. A fist-sized ball of light condensed in the air to meet Ah Si's act. Rongbing had no scruples, and now he had no scruples. Every time she killed someone, the coldness in Yen Bing's heart would spread out. Boom! Ah Si's body was sent flying back, blood spurting out of his mouth, and fell heavily onto the ground. Although it was an instantaneous small magic, it was a small instant magic, it had been quickly compressed. When Rongbing first fought with Ah Si, he had already had it, he had it, he had prepared. He had it was it was quickly compressed. However, Nianbing was still very surprised. He originally thought that the explosion of the magic ball would certainly break the opponent's battle chi and blow it into pieces. But Ah Si's battle chi was stronger than he had imagined. Although it was only at the level of a senior sword master, but his earth attribute battle chi had dissolved most of the explosive force. This saved his life. Nianbing's move was very fast. Except for Feng Nu, no one could see what kind of magic he used. Mu Rong's eyes flashed a cold light, his body exuding a strong green light. You have to look at the owner before you hit the dog. Are you ignoring my existence? Nianbing snorted. He looked at Mu Rong with some provocation, as if to say, so what if I ignore you? Mu Rong's right hand stretched forward, lightly patting Nianbing's chest, but it was Rongbing who met him. The two people's hands touched. The red and green light instantly expanded. This was a relatively peaceful way for magicians to compete. Both sides made a palm, completely relying on magic. After all, this was the Huarong Empire. Mu Rong didn't dare to go too far. The surrounding magic aura instantly became rich. Mu Rong's face changed. He took 3 steps back to stand firm. He had been shaken back by Rongbing's magic. He nodded vigorously. Okay, I'll see you on the stage. After that, he turned around and left with his sister. Ah Si struggled to get up from the ground and gave Nianbing a hateful look. Then he left. Looking at the carriage slowly leaving, Feng Nu whispered, Nianbing, you hit him too hard. Nianbing smiled indifferently and said, who told him to offend my brother? Seeing the confused look in Rongbing's eyes, he explained, although my magic ball didn't directly kill that slave, the power of ice and fire had already rushed into his meridians. Under the influence of these two extreme powers, he won't be able to live past tonight. Right now, he is just forcing himself to hold on. Brother, are they the royal family of the Longmu Empire? Rongbing was secretly surprised. He had always thought that he was ruthless enough, but he didn't expect that Nianbing, who looked gentle on the surface, would be even more tyrannical than him. She didn't leave any leeway for her opponent. Although he thought so, he didn't say it out loud. Yes, they are the royal family of the Longmu Empire. The wood magic of the Longmu Empire is a very strange magic. When used, it can borrow the power of nature. It's very special. Unfortunately, fire restrains wood. Although they are strong, they have always been suppressed by our Huarong Empire. Nianbing, if you meet this pair of siblings, try to use fire magic as your main attack. That Mu Rong has the strength of a master magician. Although his magic power isn't very strong, you have to be careful of the strangeness of his wood magic. Nianbing smiled faintly and said, I know, brother. Let's go eat. I really want to try the taste of the frittata wraps with fish. The previous unforeseen event didn't affect their mood. After passing through a few streets, they had already arrived at their destination. The restaurant's name was Frittata Wraps with Fish. The signboard wasn't small. Although there was only one floor, the hall was extremely spacious. The 3 people found a table by the window and sat down. Rongbing handed the menu to Nianbing and said to the waiter, Give us 3 servings of frittata wraps with fish. Nianbing, take a look and see what kind of porridge you want. Nianbing took the menu in her hand and was surprised to find that it was actually full of names. At the top of the list was first-grade porridge. It seemed to be black sesame glutinous rice porridge, jade pig liver porridge, barley date yam porridge, lotus leaf ice porridge, fruit ice porridge, mung bean ice porridge, and dozens of other names. Just from the names of the porridge, Nian Bing already understood a lot. This restaurant and the porridge restaurant that Rong Bing took her to before had different methods but the same characteristic. These porridge combinations were clearly guided by an expert. Each combination was very ingenious and the nourishing effect was very obvious. Rong Bing smiled and said, "How is it? Not bad, right? I suggest you try those types of ice porridge. The taste is very good." Nian Bing thought for a moment and said, "Then let's have 2 bowls of porridge each. First grade porridge, jade pig liver porridge, barley date yam porridge, lotus leaf ice porridge, fruit ice porridge, and mung bean ice porridge. We have to try each one and see if there's anything special about it." Very soon, the food they ordered was served. 3 plates of frittata wraps were cut into rectangles and were steaming hot. It was obvious that it was just out of the pot. The ribbon fish didn't look special on the surface. Under the 3 plates of ribbon fish, there were pickles at the bottom. The porridge was obviously cooked. There were 6 bowls of porridge with 6 different colors. The first grade porridge was actually glutinous rice porridge. However, the porridge had been added with crushed walnuts, peanuts, and white sesame seed. It looked very appetizing. Rong Bing was the first to start. He picked up a piece of frittata wraps and put 2 ribbon fish on his plate. He rolled them up with the frittata wraps and put them into his mouth to chew. "Nian Bing, sister-in-law, try it. The taste is very good." Nian Bing and Feng Nu learned from Rong Bing and started to eat. The frittata wraps were well cooked. The layers were clear and crispy. The ribbon fish looked like it was stewed. However, when it entered the mouth, it didn't have the tenderness of the fish. Instead, it had a rich fragrance. What was strange was that the bones of the ribbon fish were completely crisp and could be eaten. Even a top chef like Nian Bing couldn't help but be moved by the example of the frittata wraps and the ribbon fish. The taste is really good. The frittata wraps are well cooked. It must be made by a veteran pastry chef. This ribbon fish should be stewed. However, if it's stewed for too long, the fish will scatter. However, the ribbon fish here is very compact. Let me think. Yes, it should be stewed with a high-pressure flame. However, where does the pressure come from? Moreover, the fragrance is so strange. Rong Bing smiled and said, "Nian Bing, it seems that your cooking skills are not bad. You can taste the mystery just by eating. It's indeed stewed. As for the high-pressure flame, it's man-made. I specially asked the chef here for advice. When stewing the ribbon fish, the kitchen utensils used are super iron pots that are 1 inch thick. The pot lid is 2 inches thick. However, the lid has no holes. In this way, it's difficult for the heat to dissipate. Only when it's cooked with a high flame will it have such a taste. As for the fragrance you mentioned, try the pickled vegetables under the ribbon fish." Hearing Rong Bing's advice, and looking at the sparkling and translucent pickled vegetables, Nian Bing suddenly understood. Using pickled vegetables as the base and adding seasoning to stew is really a good method. The chef here has a unique idea. The frittata wraps the ribbon fish. It's novel and delicious. Not bad. The meal ended in a relaxed atmosphere. Whether it was the ribbon fish or the different flavors of the porridge, they all left a deep impression on Nian Bing. When he thought of his own cooking skills, it inspired him a lot. Among all the porridge, Nian Bing appreciated the most was the magician's fruit porridge. The fruits in it were very simple. There were only 3 kinds of fruits: watermelon, pear, and banana. The 3 kinds of fruits were cut into small cubes. With the glutinous rice porridge as the foundation, the taste was cold and sweet. Feng Nu liked it very much. She forced Nian Bing to make it for her in the future. 2 days passed quickly. Because the competition could only be participated by the contestants, Nian Bing asked Feng Nu to wait for him in the hotel. After spending a month together, even though the 2 of them were still polite, their hearts were already close. Just as Rong Bing had said, no one from the Phoenix tribe had appeared. No matter what happened during the competition, Nian Bing would tell her his guess about the Phoenix girl's identity after the competition ended. When they were about to go out, Feng Nu did not show any worry. She understood that what Nian Bing needed now was her support. She only said one sentence to Nian Bing: "I believe in your strength." The palace gate was already in sight. Perhaps because the new magician's competition was going to be held here today, the palace was even more heavily guarded. Nian Bing came very early. After showing the competition number plate, he was led into the palace by the soldiers. Since he was young, this was the first time Nian Bing walked into the palace of a country. Moreover, it was the Huarong Empire, known as the most powerful country in the continent. There were not many decorations in the palace. Even plants were rarely seen. However, each palace was filled with a solemn atmosphere. The magnificent palace was not very gorgeous, but it gave people a feeling that it was very solid. The Huarong Empire was a country that worshipped fire. Therefore, the place where Emperor Huarong summoned the officials was called the Fire God Temple. The Fire God Temple was the tallest building in the entire palace, but it only had one floor. However, the height of this floor was more than 150 feet. The inside of the Fire God Temple was very spacious. The aisle from the center to the dragon throne of Emperor Hua Tian was 20 feet wide. The middle was covered with a red carpet. The officials of the Huarong Empire were divided into two sides. The officials were closest to Emperor Hua Tian. On the right side of the aisle sat Prince Rong, who was known as the Flaming Lion King. Opposite him was naturally the Prime Minister of the Empire, who was also one of the founding fathers of the empire, Su Yu. Nian Bing was very familiar with Prince Rong. At this time, Emperor Hua Tian had not arrived yet. She immediately saw Su Yu, who was opposite Prince Rong. Su Yu looked much younger than Prince Rong. Although he was also an old man, he exuded a scholarly aura. He did not wear his official robes. Instead, he wore a moon-white robe that added to his scholarly aura. His figure was well-proportioned, and his facial lines were gentle. His pair of phoenix eyes also revealed a gentle light. Compared to Prince Rong, he seemed to be more approachable. Nian Bing was led by the soldiers to stand in front of the hundreds of officials. Beside her was Rong Bing. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, Rong Bing did not greet him. The two acted as if they did not know each other. Nian Bing looked around. Among the 10 contestants in the competition, other than herself and her brother, there was another person who had arrived. He stood on the other side of Rong Bing. There was not a trace of expression on his wooden face. There was also a golden lion symbol on his left chest. It was the other contestant from the Huarong Empire, Rong Ji. Seeing Rong Ji again, Nian Bing suddenly had a strange feeling in her heart. Rong Ji seemed to be different from before. He had become more reserved, and there was not even a trace of magic fluctuation. However, Nian Bing faintly felt that not only was Rong Ji's strength not below Rong Bing's, but he might even be stronger. Although the Rong family and the Su family were both pillars of the Huarong Empire, there was an unwritten rule that unless there was an important matter, only the heads of the two families could attend Emperor Hua Tian's court meetings. Therefore, Nian Bing did not see her eldest uncle, Rong Yu, whom she longed to see. Prince Rong's eyes were downcast. Rong Bing and Nian Bing's entrance did not seem to attract his attention. Instead, it was Prime Minister Su Yu who nodded slightly at Rong Bing before fixing his gaze on Nian Bing. Although Nian Bing had changed her appearance, her handsome appearance and extraordinary temperament still attracted Su Yu's attention. Today, Nian Bing had specially worn a red magician's robe. There was naturally no symbol on it, nor was there any indication of a magician's level. After the transformation, her long black hair naturally fell to her shoulders, and her expression was calm. Nian Bing revealed a trace of a smile. His gaze was very gentle, but strangely had a strange penetrating power, as if he could see into one's heart. Feeling Su Yu's gaze, Nian Bing's mental strength naturally condensed, forming a natural resistance. Not long after, the magicians participating in the competition arrived one after another. After Nian Bing and Rong Bing arrived were the Longmu Empire's Mu Rong and Mu Jing. The two stood opposite Nian Bing and Rong Bing. Mu Jing's gaze was very lively. When her gaze fell on the Rong Bing brothers, it revealed a trace of anger and provocation, filled with deep hatred. Mu Rong was clearly much more mature than his sister. His gaze was cold and emotionless. Then, two young magicians from the Kiru Empire arrived. Their appearances were very ordinary, but from their magicians' robes, it could be seen that they were wind and water magicians respectively. Their ordinary appearance did not cause Nian Bing to look down on them. To be able to represent their country, how could their strength be weak? After them were the people sent by the Ottoman Empire's Magicians' Guild. They were actually two women. Ling Yanbing was surprised that these two female magicians' attributes were extremely rare. One of them was wearing a silver magician's robe that symbolized the space element, while the other was a gold magician's robe that symbolized the light element. Coupled with their beautiful appearance, they immediately became the most eye-catching magicians in the competition. Although the two female magicians tried their best to restrain themselves, when their eyes swept across the officials present, they did not reveal any trace of hatred. After all, how could they remain calm when facing the enemies who had once invaded their country? Although these magicians had their own characteristics, they were not the ones that Nian Bing wanted to see the most. At this moment, the hatred hidden in her heart gradually burned. Silence, she waited. Waiting for the appearance of the last contestant. Qianhuan Bingyun finally arrived. Without anyone accompanying her, she walked into the Fire God Temple in silence. The moment she stepped into the Fire God Temple, it seemed that the temperature of the entire Fire God Temple dropped. It was not because of magic, but because of her own coldness. Finally seeing the enemy that they were about to face, Nian Bing and Rong Bing's bodies could not help but tighten. Even Rong Ji, who had a calm expression, was slightly stirred. Qianhuan Bingyun's pace was very slow. She directly walked to the bottom and stood there. Wearing a white magician's robe embroidered with blue ice flowers, her slender figure was not inferior to Feng Nu's. Her long blue hair was like a waterfall that fell straight to the ground. But the position close to the ground seemed to be supported by something. Her hair was slightly tilted to the back, and no one could see her appearance clearly, because her face was covered with a white veil, but her calm blue eyes were filled with coldness. It was as if she was a piece of ice, a piece of eternal ice. Perfect figure, cold temperament, and calm and incomparably deep eyes. It made up everything about this young magician from the Ice God Tower. Her appearance overshadowed the radiance of the other three female sorcerers. She was like an untainted ice flower that bloomed in the cold. Prince Rong slowly raised his head, his cold gaze sweeping across Qianhuan Bingyun. Bingyun's calm eyes did not change, but his slender body shook slightly, and he took a step back, standing at the bottom of Nian Bing's group. A sigh flashed across Prince Rong's body, and he returned to his previous appearance, as if nothing had happened. At this moment, the messenger in the hall shouted, "His Majesty has arrived." Everyone's gaze turned towards the throne at the top of the Fire God Shrine. Under the escort of the palace maids, the 80-year-old great Emperor Hua Tian slowly walked up to his throne. Along with him, there was also a person that Nian Bing was very familiar with. It was Princess Hua Yinua. Yinua had changed into a splendid dress today. The pink princess dress set off her noble temperament, making her appear even more beautiful. Yinua supported her grandfather's hand. From the moment she appeared, there was only one person in her eyes. Rong Bing's gaze met with Yinua's fervent gaze, and he nodded towards her, revealing a rare smile. While Rong Bing and Yinua were exchanging amorous glances, Nian Bing was carefully observing this Emperor Hua Tian, who had founded the Huarong Empire. Although Emperor Hua Tian's hair and beard were also white, he did not look like an old man with one foot in the grave. His rosy skin was extremely glossy, and even wrinkles were rarely seen. Although he was resolute and had a faint smile, he naturally emitted an invisible majesty. If it wasn't for his beard and hair revealing his age, he would only look like he was in his 40s. None of the three people who founded the Hwarong Empire were simple. Prince Rong was a powerful fire magician, Prime Minister Su Yu was known as the wisest person in the Yangon continent, and Emperor Hua Tian had reached the realm of swordsmen at the age of 40. As an emperor for many years, it had been a long time since anyone had seen him take action. However, no one doubted that he was a top-notch warrior. Thinking back to those years, it was this smiling emperor who had killed countless enemies with Prince Rong. Emperor Hua Tian had the title of Iron Blood Emperor. Other than Rong Yen and Su Yu, all the officials knelt on the ground at the same time and respectfully said, "Long live, long live, long live." The magicians who came from the outside also knelt on one knee and saluted. Only Qianhuan Bingyun was still standing, like a proud ice lotus, still emitting a faint chill. "How dare you, outsider, not salute?" Qianhuan Bingyun said indifferently, "I serve God, not man." This simple sentence had already expressed her position. Although the cold voice was pleasant to the ears, it made those who loved beauty break out in cold sweat. Prince Rong looked at Qianhuan Bingyun twice. This time, he slowly stood up. Hua Tian was not only the emperor, but also his brother. He wouldn't allow anyone to disrespect his brother. Emperor Hua Tian smiled slightly and said, "Elder Rong, you're already so old. Don't be so hot-tempered. Sit down." Prince Rong's eyes met with Hua Tian's. Hua Tian nodded slightly at him. Prince Rong immediately understood the meaning of his old brother's words. His gaze instantly swept past Rong Bing and Rong Ji. Emperor Hua Tian's meaning was very clear. If they relied on the advantage of the other party's territory to subdue the other party, it would go against the original purpose of the Five Kingdoms Magician Tournament. Only by defeating the other party in a tournament could one be considered a true powerhouse. Rong Bing and Rong Ji felt the burden on their shoulders become heavier. The people of the Ice God Tower are indeed different from the rest. I heard that the lady's name should be Bing Yun. Emperor Hua Tian seemed to be most interested in the Ice God Tower. Qianhuan Bingyun said indifferently, "Yes." Emperor Hua Tian's gaze swept over the other magicians participating in the tournament. He said, "Then who is the other representative of the Ice Moon Empire?" Qianhuan Bingyun said, "I don't know. I came alone. The Ice God Tower has no connection with the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild." Although her tone didn't change, it sounded very harsh in Nian Bing's ears. She stepped out of the ranks. Nian Bing turned to Emperor Hua Tian and said, "This one is Nian Bing, representing the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild to participate in the tournament." Just as Miss Bingyun said, "Our Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild has no connection with the Ice God Tower. I also came alone." There was nothing wrong with what he said, but he deliberately emphasized the word light, and his words were full of disdain. It was as if the Ice God Tower was a rat crossing the street, and should be avoided as much as possible. Emperor Hua Tian smiled and said, "So that's how it is. I didn't expect that the Ice Moon Empire would send a fire magician to participate in the tournament." Nian Bing looked straight at Emperor Hua Tian. "I'm not a fire magician," Emperor Hua Tian said with some surprise. "Then why are you wearing a fire magician's robe?" Nian Bing smiled coldly and said, "Unfortunately, there isn't a suitable magician's robe for me. I'm just casually wearing it." Only Prince Rong and Rong Bing could understand the meaning behind her word. Emperor Hua Tian smiled and said, "Interesting. Since that's the case, then I'll be waiting to see your wonderful performance. Today, the Five Nations Magician Tournament will begin again. I already know the names of all the participants, and I won't say anything else. Just like the previous tournaments, only the final champion will receive a prize. Although the Hwarong Empire can't be said to be very rich, it's still very rich. But we definitely won't be stingy when it comes to the prizes." Prince Rong, The day before yesterday you told me that the prizes were already prepared. Please take them out to stimulate us participants. Emperor Hua Tian's words gave off a relaxed feeling, and he didn't put on the airs of an emperor. Prince Rong stood up again and stretched out his hands. A red light flashed in his hands. Suddenly, a long brocade box appeared. The red light in his hands flickered, and the seal on the brocade box slowly opened. Suddenly, a soft yellow light floated out. The light wasn't dazzling, and it was filled with the aura of life. Everyone saw that there was actually a saber in the brocade box. It was a simple and unadorned saber with a thick back. The blade was about 2 feet long. The handle was 8 inches long, and the blade was 1 foot and 2 inches long. The back of the saber was extremely thick, and it was 2 inches long. Just by looking at it, one could feel the weight of the saber. What attracted the participants the most was the irregularly cut gemstone on the hilt. The faint yellow light was emitted from the gemstone. Emperor Hua Tian's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. Originally, I was going to take out one of my treasures for this tournament, but Prince Rong insisted on taking my place. Elder Rong, I didn't expect you to spend so much money. This longevity saber seems to be the one that we used to, Prince Rong said. That's right. It's the longevity saber. This saber is made from the essence of earth. The longevity stone on the hilt is the most precious stone among earth elemental magic stones. The most valuable thing is the aura of life attached to this saber. This saber is priceless. Whether or not you can obtain it depends on the abilities of each country's magicians. Not only is it a top-grade saber, but it can also be used as a magic staff. Its title is The Melody of Earth's Awakening. After saying the last word, Prince Rong's gaze fell on Nian Bing. Nian Bing's body trembled. Although Prince Rong's gaze only swept past her quickly, she could still feel the trace of hope in Prince Rong's eyes. He seemed to be saying that whether or not she could obtain this saber was up to her. Did he come here to ask for this prize for her? Yes, she knew that her mimicry spell was only missing an earth elemental magic saber. But why did he do this? Was he still the same Prince Rong that she knew? Nian Bing's heart was in a mess. Her strong hatred for Qianhuan Bingyun had become even more complicated after the appearance of the longevity saber. She knew very well what this saber meant to her. Garamandes had once told her that if she could complete all the mimicry spells, she would be able to achieve a breakthrough under the influence of all the different types of spells. As for what realm she would reach, it was hard to say. An all-elemental magician was too attractive to Nian Bing. However, she really didn't want to owe Prince Rong a favor. How could she be so sure that she could win? Prince Rong closed the box and handed it to one of the palace guards. Then, he nodded to Emperor Hua Tian. Emperor Hua Tian smiled and said, "Good. You've already seen the prize. Denying is for the glory, not this precious prize. Work hard. Alright, let's begin the drawing of lots. If 2 magicians from the same country are in the same group, please draw another lot." There were 2 other people who were also attracted to the longevity saber like Nian Bing. They were Mu Rong and his sister. Nature magic was based on earth elemental magic. The longevity saber, which was full of vitality, had a special meaning to them. The eyes of the 2 siblings lit up at the same time. Determination flowed in their eyes. The appearance of the longevity saber had been deeply imprinted in their hearts. The melody of the earth's awakening. If they could use it to cast nature magic, what would it be like? Although the others were not as obvious as Mu Rong and his sister, in the face of the highest quality magic saber and the highest honor of being a young magician, their hearts burned with passion. Only one person was completely calm. Qianhuan Bingyun's eyes were still as cold as ever. It was as if none of this had anything to do with her. Chapter 105. Everyone knew that the first match of the competition was extremely important. According to the rules of the competition, the 2 groups would each have 2 matches every day, and one person would have a bye. After the group matches, there would be a 2-day break, and then the final match would be held. It was decided that there would be a total of 3 matches. 2 matches would be held on the first day, and then a one-day break would be held before the final match. Therefore, if one could meet a relatively weak opponent in the early stages of the competition, it would be better to conserve magic power and maintain one's condition. After the group matches, one could also have ample rest. As long as it was a magician participating in this competition, there was no one who didn't want to win the final match. The first one to walk out was Nianbing. He didn't have any wishful thinking about the opponent he would face. For him, everything didn't matter. In any case, it was impossible for him to meet Qianhuan Bingyun in the group matches. He casually drew a lot and stood back in his position. Seeing that Nianbing had drawn a lot, the other magicians followed one after another. The drawing of lots was surprisingly smooth, and there was no situation of being in the same group or country. Nianbing held the lot number 1 of Group 2. In the first round of the competition, he would face the number 2 of the same group. Rongbing had drawn Group 1 as he wished, and Qianhuan Bingyun was in the same group as him. Moreover, they, who had drawn number 3 and 4 respectively, would meet in the second match of Group 1 today. The Wind Magician from the Qi Lu Empire looked at the lot in his hand and smiled. This was definitely a good draw. Number 2 of Group 2, he was about to face the representative of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild, who had never entered the top 8. He was full of confidence about the result of the first match, but was this really a good draw? Under the guidance of the Fire God Shrine of the Huarong Empire, 10 magicians representing the 5 countries left the Fire God Shrine. The Imperial Palace was very big. They were taken to a hall behind the Imperial Palace that was not inferior to the Fire God Shrine. Before entering the hall, everyone could clearly see that there were 3 big golden words on the plaque hanging outside the hall: Trial Hall. Although this hall was very large, its layout was very simple. In the center of the hall, there was a huge round platform that was 1 zhang tall and more than 30 zhang in diameter. There were stairs on both sides of the platform, and the entire hall seemed to have been built for this round platform. The hall was 20 zhang tall, and as soon as he entered, he could clearly feel the rich magic aura of this trial hall. If he carefully examined it, he could feel the sealing power contained within the walls of the hall. While the 10 participating mages were observing their surroundings, a row of mages wearing red magic robes filed in. Their formation was very neat. As soon as they entered the hall, they immediately stood in a circle around the round table. A total of 100 fire mages stood in a circle. They all had one thing in common, which was that they all had the symbol of a great mage on their chest. Nianbing was secretly shocked. No wonder they were the strongest country in the continent. The Huarong Empire's Mage Union alone was far more powerful than the Ice Moon Empire's Mage Union. If they were used in a war, how powerful would that be? These mages had obviously been together for a long time. If they cooperated well, the destructive power they could produce was unimaginable. Following the 100 fire mages, the last person to enter the hall was someone Nianbing recognized. It was Prince Rong's third brother, Rong Fei. The symbol of a magister shone brightly on his chest as he walked to the other side of the round table. There, seats were neatly arranged. The most spacious seat in the center was obviously set up for Emperor Hua Tian. After a while, Emperor Hua Tian led a dozen people, including Prince Rong and Prime Minister Su Yu, into the trial hall from the other side. At this moment, it was clear to see the status of the officials of the Huarong Empire. Those who were able to watch the competition here were all important officials of the Huarong Empire. When Emperor Hua Tian and the others were seated, Prince Rong nodded to Rong Fei. The red light of the flames surrounded Rong Fei's body and rose into the air. Even though he was over 70 years old, he didn't look old at all. Under the effect of the red flames, his body was lifted up and floated onto the round table that was 10 feet in diameter. Slowly walking to the center of the round table, Rong Fei faced the 10 mages below and smiled. As you can see, this round table will be the venue for your competition for a period of time. I will be the referee for this competition. There are 100 great mages from our mage legion here. When you use magic, you can do whatever you want without any scruples. If you think you are not a match for them, you can admit defeat. Any injuries will be at your own risk. However, if one side still attacks after the other side has admitted defeat, it will be judged as a loss. Front, let's invite the number 1 and number 2 mages of the first group onto the stage. When I announce the start of the competition, you can start. Magic items are allowed in the competition, but any magic scrolls are prohibited. The one who drew the number 1 lot was Mu Rong from the Longmu Empire, and the number 2 lot was the female light mage from the Ottoman Empire. The two of them walked up to the competition's round platform and looked at each other from 30 meters away. Mu Rong appeared to be very gentlemanly as he faintly smiled at the female mage opposite him and politely said, "This humble one is Mu Rong from Longmu Empire, please give me some pointers." The first ones he faced were actually Rong Bing and Yen Bing. His subordinate named A Si had followed him for many years, but after returning that day, he didn't last long and died. After being crippled, A Si's meridians were half burned and half frozen. This made Mu Rong wary of Nian Bing. At the same time, his eyes were full of hostility. It wasn't until now that he knew that Nian Bing was actually representing the Ice Moon Empire. Moreover, she was from the Ice Moon Empire's Mage Union. He firmly believed that with his strength, he would be able to avenge A Si. Although he didn't show it on the surface, the hatred in his heart was already deeply rooted. The female light mage didn't seem to have any ill feelings towards the Longmu Empire. She also smiled and greeted back. "My name is Fei Fei." Standing in the middle of the round table, Rong Fei looked at the two of them and said with a smile, "The two of you get ready." His words were also an order to the 100 fire mages below the stage. A low and orderly chanting sound came from all around the round table. The fire element in the air suddenly became very active. 100 fire mages simultaneously chanted the same incantation. Even a fire mage couldn't compare. A red halo floated up like a slow cloth, and a transparent red cover covered the whole round table. Nian Bing, who was familiar with fire magic, immediately recognized that this was the fire magic of the 5th step, Fire Cloud Cover. Although it was only a spell of the 5th step, when 100 people used it at the same time, its power was extremely strong. It was enough to defend against any magic attack below the forbidden spell level. Rong Fei floated back to the side of the round table. But he didn't leave the stage. Red flames wrapped around his body, and he shouted, "Group 1 number 1 against Group 1 number 2, match start." With that, the match started. Immediately, the sound of an incantation was heard. Mu Rong and Fei Fei raised their hands at almost the same time. A strangely shaped magic staff appeared in Mu Rong's hand. It seemed to be condensed from countless thin vines. The magic staff was 3 meters long, and there was a dark green fruit-shaped gem at the head of the staff. Although it didn't shine, once the magic staff appeared, a green halo immediately appeared around Mu Rong's body. Fei Fei's movements didn't slow down in the slightest. The small and exquisite staff brought out a golden radiance. On both sides of the staff, there was a pure white-winged sculpture, setting off a golden gem the size of a walnut at the top. Without any pause, once the staff appeared, she immediately waved it forward. In the flickering golden light, an arrow of light shot out like lightning towards Mu Rong. In a one-on-one duel between mages, the most important thing was to affect the opponent's chanting of a high-level incantation. Mu Rong seemed to have already anticipated the opponent's actions. The long-handled magic staff in his hand was held vertically in front of him. A layer of green radiance instantly formed a shield of light, blocking the attack of the arrow of light. A strange scene appeared. When the arrow of light exploded on the shield of light and turned into specks of golden light, the original green radiance actually became even more intense. The magic staff in Mu Rong's hand changed. The whole staff actually strangely disintegrated, turning into strands of green filaments, covering the sky and covering the earth as they entangled Fei-Fei. Fei-Fei was clearly frightened by the scene before her eyes. While retreating, she quickly chanted an incantation. Golden radiance revolved around her body, and a transparent golden shield of light appeared in the midst of the incantation, forcibly blocking the green filaments of the vines coming from all around. However, it only blocked them. When the green filaments came in contact with the golden light, there wasn't any change. In the process of unceasingly piercing, the golden shield of light became tottering, as if it could break at any time. Mu Rong smiled as he looked at Fei-Fei, who was trapped in his attack. Don't try to resist. Light illuminates the earth, and will only have a mutually reinforcing effect on my nature magic. You won't have a chance. This magic staff of mine is called Vine Silk. It's an excellent offensive magic item. Even if I don't use incantations, the attack power it can produce is equivalent to a spell of the 5th step. Fei-Fei Qiao revealed a trace of coldness in her inappropriate use of words. Indifferently, she said, "Is that really so? Light can indeed bring growth to nature, but excessive light can also cause nature to be destroyed due to the loss of water." After saying this, she raised the angel's staff in her hand again. While maintaining the light shield of antibodies, she quickly chanted an incantation. Circles of golden halos unceasingly floated out from her body. Every layer of golden radiance could support the light shield of her body, and his green filaments couldn't penetrate it in the slightest. Mu Rong's expression changed slightly. He knew that the opponent had found a way to deal with his magic staff. Not daring to be negligent, he raised both his palms, facing each other from a distance in front of his chest. The dark green bead at the top of the magic staff from before appeared in the hollow of his palm. The dark green gem floating in the air began to emit a faint glow. "O great Earth Goddess! You are the mother of all living creatures. Please allow me to guide the power of nature, and turn it into eternal spring that engulfs every corner. Let the seed of life germinate, let the breath of life bloom. The breath of nature moves with me, and the breath of nature coexists with life." Nature domain. Mu Rong's incantation speed was very slow. Before his incantation was completed, Fei-Fei on the opposite side had already undergone a change. The light that had been accumulating for a long time instantly erupted, turning into golden flames that swept out. Holy flame, destroy all the invasion of evil. At this moment, Fei-Fei's golden magic robe looked very holy. Golden light lingered around her, and golden flames instantly spread out from her body. The vines that were still advancing bravely a moment ago immediately emitted faint green smoke when they came in contact with the golden flames. They rapidly retreated in the direction of Mu Rong. Mu Rong acted as if he didn't know anything. When the rank 6 holy flame was 3 meters away from him, he finally finished his incantation. His hands loosened, and the dark green gem that was originally floating in the air drifted to the ground. Strangely, the gem actually directly melted into the ground and disappeared. The vines condensed into a green shield a meter in front of Mu Rong, barely blocking the attack of the holy flame. Mu Rong's face was somewhat pale, but his green eyes revealed a trace of pride. The seed of life needs the nourishment of light. Team Fei-Fei, I'm sorry. Fei-Fei, who was using all her strength to control the holy flame, couldn't help but slow down when she heard Mu Rong's words. However, being able to represent the Ottoman Empire, she naturally had her own outstanding points. Under the control of her spiritual power, the holy flame instantly split into two, going around the vines in front of her and sweeping towards Mu Rong. The strangeness of nature magic was finally revealed. The entire stage was suddenly filled with the aura of life. The radiance of the holy flame rapidly weakened, and countless green vines sprouted from the bottom of the stage. It was as if the stage had turned into a forest. The holy flame was swallowed by a green ocean, and before Fei-Fei could react, her body was already wrapped by circles of green vines. The aura of life didn't bring her any discomfort, but her body had already robbed her of her ability to move. The green vines grew all the way to the fire cloud cover's boundary before stopping. At this moment, both Mu Rong and Fei Fei were drowned in green. On the entire stage, only the area around Rong Fei was free of green vines. Mu Rong's voice came from the green ocean. Nature and life exist in every corner of the world. How can you win against the power of nature? Miss Fei Fei, you've lost. The green aura gradually retracted, and the vines burrowed back into the ground. The entire stage was still as smooth as before, as if nothing had happened. Fei Fei looked at Mu Rong in front of her in a daze. As the representative of her country, she represented the dignity of the Ottoman Empire. She looked at Mu Rong with a complicated expression. Although she had lost, she hadn't suffered any injuries. Fei Fei could clearly feel that his magical prowess was not below Mu Rong's. However, when faced with this strange nature magic from the beginning, he had an awkward feeling of being unable to use his power. As a result, he was unable to display the true might of his magic. He sighed softly, lowered his head, and said reluctantly, "I've lost." Ting Sishan had already returned to her original form. Mu Rong was very satisfied with his result. A good start was very important for the rest of the competition. Rong Fei stepped forward and announced, "In the first match of the first group, Mu Rong of the Longmu Empire wins." The fire cloud cover's boundary disappeared, and the two contestants walked down the stage unscathed. However, their moods were completely different. Mu Rong walked down the stage and pointed his vine staff at Rongbing, as if to say, "Next time, you'll be the one to lose." If he was facing Rongbing, whether it was for the sake of his country or personal grudges, he wouldn't show any mercy. Rongbing's eyes revealed a trace of determination. He knew more about nature magic than Fei Fei of the Alan Empire. However, the nature domain that Mu Rong had displayed earlier had also shocked him quite a bit. He couldn't see the level of that magic at all, but it had actually devoured the energy of the light element. Then, could he devour other magic as well? After a short moment of consideration, Rongbing didn't linger on this question. This was because the opponent he would be facing today would be his greatest enemy on the road to becoming the champion, Qianhuan Bingyun of the Ice God Tower. Rong Fei stood in the center of the stage and announced, "The second match will be between the first and second members of the second group. Please come to the stage." Just as he finished speaking, a strong gust of wind suddenly appeared in the trial hall. Under the wind, a green figure floated up and landed in the center of the stage. It was the wind magician from the Longmu Empire, who had drawn the second member of the second group. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He raised his hand and pointed at Nianbing, beckoning him with his finger. Nianbing's face revealed a faint smile. He slowly walked up the stairs to the stage. He didn't walk very quickly, but each step was very firm. When he was about 30 meters away from his opponent, the wind magician was already somewhat impatient. Longmu Empire's wind magician, Alu. He was so confident that he didn't even bother to ask for guidance. Nianbing still had a smile on his face. Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild, Nianbing. He saved even more. He didn't even say what element he was a magician of. Rong Fei's gaze swept over the two of them calmly. He floated back and shouted, "The second match begin." As soon as the word begin came out, Alu didn't even take out his magic staff. He immediately launched an attack against Nianbing. The representative of the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild from the previous world didn't even manage to obtain a single victory. Faced with the enemy he thought to be weak, it was inevitable that he would underestimate his opponent. Dozens of wind blades shot towards Nianbing at an extremely fast speed, sealing off all of Nianbing's escape route. The green wind blades brought with them an ear-piercing sound as they tore through the air. Every one of them was filled with powerful attack power. Among the Tier 1 instant spells, the wind element was definitely the fastest. Nianbing continued to serve with a smile on his face. Spots of blue light appeared around him out of thin air. The blue spots were nothing more than tiny ice bullets. Even if these ice bullets hit a person directly, they wouldn't necessarily cause much damage. The number of ice bullets was exactly the same as the wind blade. The blue light drew a dozen arcs in the air as they floated towards Alu. A shocking scene occurred. The wind blade's attacks were messy, but the ice bullets accurately hit the center of each wind blade. Even though this wasn't enough to destroy the wind blades, it still caused the wind blades to lose their ability to attack. When the faint green light arrived in front of Nianbing, it had already turned into a gentle breeze that caressed his body. Precise control of magic. This was Rong Fei's evaluation of Nianbing. Alu didn't expect Nianbing to be able to deal with his attack like this. He had no choice but to give up and start chanting a powerful spell. With a wave of his right hand, a green magic staff appeared in his hand. The green gem on the top of the staff shone brightly, and a strong wind spun around his body. At the same time, Nianbing sternly said, "You are obviously an ice magician, why are you wearing a fire magician's outfit?" Nianbing smiled strangely and said, "Do you think I am an ice magician? Then you'd better watch carefully." As he spoke, a fist-sized ice bullet floated out. Immediately after, a fireball of the same size chased after the ice ball. In an instant, 2 Tier 1 and Tier 2 spells were released. The appearance of ice and fire at the same time shocked most of the people present. Although Olivier was shocked, he was an excellent magician after all, and his reaction was fast. He endured the pain and released the secret weapon that was originally attached to his magic staff. Although this magic staff of his wasn't a top-tier item, it had a special property. The wind-type gem on the staff allowed him to store a Tier 4 wind-type spell. In a one-on-one battle where he couldn't use scrolls, this magic staff had a huge advantage. A small tornado suddenly appeared beside Arcane and swept towards the 2 balls of ice and fire. His plan was very simple. Not only did he have to destroy Nianbing's instant cast attack, but he also had to rely on this magic staff's instant cast Tier 4 spell to defeat Nianbing. Although Alu was a great magician, he wasn't weak. In fact, he was even stronger than his companions. If he had relied on his own strength to compete with Nianbing, Nianbing would have had to put in more effort to defeat him. However, his underestimation from the start had sealed his fate. The ice and fireballs flying in the air weren't static. As they flew, they constantly shrank in size. By the time the small tornado appeared, the ice and fireballs had shrunk to 1/5 of their original size. Although there wasn't much difference on the surface, the magic elements in these 2 small magic spells had already become violent due to the compression. The fireball instantly accelerated and collided with the ice ball. Boom! A violent explosion of ice, fire, and wind energy erupted at the same time. A powerful shockwave spread in all directions, forcing Alu to retreat several steps. He never imagined that 2 spells that weren't even worth the second price would be able to destroy his Tier 4 tornado so easily. However, what surprised him the most was that when facing an enemy, Nianbing never had the habit of holding back. Amidst the explosion, a pair of ice and fire balls quietly slid past the shockwave and arrived in front of Alu. A laughable scene followed. Unable to defend himself in time, Arlen actually used his magic staff to strike at the 2 balls of ice and fire. Less than a second after the previous explosion, another similar explosion rang out. However, this time, the explosion was a mix of sounds, accompanied by a blood-curdling scream. Ao Lu's magic staff disappeared in the explosion. The magic robe on his body seemed to be a good treasure. It actually protected his body from being destroyed by the explosion. Unfortunately, the robe could only protect the body. His hands that were holding the magic staff had disappeared. Blood was quickly flowing out from the severed hand. Ao Lu was lying on the ground. Because of the severe pain, he was constantly rolling. The match started quickly and ended even faster. In less than half the time of the previous match, everything was over, and it ended in a tragic way. The 2 water mages responsible for the first aid rushed to the stage and used magic to stop Alu's bleeding. Everyone knew that even if he didn't die, he wouldn't be able to participate in the following matches. The smile on Nian Bing's face did not disappear because of the scene in front of her. She gently shook her head, thinking to herself that if it weren't for the magic robe, Alu's body would have ended up like his hands. What a pity, he was a magician after all, and the ice and fire aura attached to her ice and fireballs were not enough to kill him. It seemed that she could only let him go. At the end of the match, the boundary of the fire cloud cover naturally disappeared. A blue figure quickly rushed to the stage and rushed towards Nian Bing without any hesitation. It was the aura of water. Nian Bing seemed to have expected this. With a flash of light, a cyan sword appeared in his hand. Red and blue lights appeared under his feet. The cyan wind blew his body back. In the process of floating, he quickly recited a spell. The attacker who suddenly appeared was naturally the water mage who came with Alu. Seeing his companion's hands being cruelly blown off by Nian Bing, how could he bear it? In his rage, he had already lost all sense of reason. Streaks of instantaneous water arrows shot towards Nian Bing continuously. The cyan light shone on the sword. Under the precise control of Nian Bing, the wind blade of the proud heaven sword easily broke the attack of the water arrows. The cyan light on the proud heaven sword continued to rise. Nian Bing's eyes showed a trace of cruel cold light. At this time there were 6 people on the stage. In addition to Nian Bing and the water mage, there was also Alu who was in a coma, 2 water archmages who were treating him, and Rong Fei who was paying attention to Alu's situation. Rong Fei was frowning as he looked at Alu's injuries. Suddenly, he felt the magical aura on the stage and couldn't help but look up. From the surface, Nian Bing was being forced to retreat by the water mage. He couldn't help but frown and shouted, "Stop!" Just as the word came out of his mouth, Nian Bing moved. The originally retreating figure suddenly stopped. The proud heaven sword instantly erupted with a dazzling cyan light. The wind-chanting stone brought a distant sound of wind. In midair, the cyan light condensed into a huge wind blade more than 10 feet long. When Rong Fei shouted the word, "Stop," blood bloomed like a flower. The cyan wind blade was the 6th rank wind spell Aeolus Slash. How could the water mage resist such a powerful attack with only the magic items on his body when he lost his mind? His body was completely cut in 2, blood staining the stage red. The residual power of Aeolus Slash left a deep mark more than 2 feet long on the stage. Coincidentally, the tail flame of Aeolus Slash just happened to pass through the gap between the bodies of the 2 water mages, cutting Alu on the ground in 2. Blood spilled all over the 2 water archmages. Nian Bing's face showed a panicked expression. Sorry, I'm really sorry, magic is hard to control in a panic." At this time, Rong Fei had already arrived in front of Nian Bing, the light of the flames rising in an instant, enveloping Nian Bing in it. What a ruthless method! Nian Bing lowered her head and said with an aggrieved expression, "I'm sorry, referee, I didn't mean to. It's very difficult to control the power of one's magic in a magic competition, so Alu's hand was cut off. You saw what happened afterwards, Alu also attacked me indiscriminately. I only acted to protect myself. He was the one who broke the rules first. If I didn't resist, wouldn't I be killed by him? I also used all my strength in the last attack to protect myself. Who knew that he would be like a piece of paper, so vulnerable? As for Alu, he can only count himself as unlucky. Magic doesn't have eyes." Rong Fei's eyes flashed. Although he didn't care about the life and death of the magicians from the Qi Empire, after all, this new magician competition was held in the Huarong Empire. After all, 2 contestants from the Qi Empire died so inexplicably on the first day of the competition. After all, it was difficult to explain to the Qi Empire. However, Nian Bing's words were reasonable, and there was no overstep in the slightest. Everything was according to the rules of the competition, and now no one could prove that he killed the 2 magicians on purpose. Looking at the hesitant look in Rong Fei's eyes, Nian Bing smiled and said, "Mr. Referee, Shouldn't you give me the victory? As he spoke, his gaze swept over the other contestants below the stage. Except for Rong Bing and Bing Yun, the other contestants couldn't help but feel their hearts tighten. Nian Bing's ruthlessness made them feel a sense of crisis in their hearts, especially the two female magicians from the Ottoman Empire. At this time, their faces were very ugly. Such a bloody scene had left a deep mark in their minds. Rong Fei looked at Prince Rong, who was watching the competition. Prince Rong calmly nodded at him. Rong Fei took a deep breath, and reluctantly announced that Nian Bing was the winner of the second round of the competition. Nian Bing walked down the stage with a smile on his face. He returned to his original position and thought to himself coldly. He was at least ranked 8th now. He didn't try to hide anything. At the same time, he knew that anyone with a discerning eye could tell that he had purposely led the two of them to their deaths. He was playing with his own life by giving his enemies a chance. He was using their underestimation and anger to clear the way for him. Why wouldn't he do that? Anyway, the fact that he could use many types of magic would be exposed sooner or later, so it didn't matter if it was exposed a little earlier. After all, his true strength was still far from being displayed. At this time, the situation of the competition had become more subtle because of the disappearance of the two contestants. The contestants who should have been glad that there were fewer opponents didn't feel that way, especially the contestants of the second group. In their eyes, the weak magicians had suddenly become tyrannical killers. In a moment, their mentality had changed. Chapter 106. Emperor Huatian's gaze fell on Nian Bing. Beside him, Yinua was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. In Yinua's eyes, Nian Bing was a gentle young man without any temper. However, everything that happened before was so real. Although Emperor Huatian was surprised, there was a bit of appreciation in his eyes. In the past, when he, Prince Rong, and Su Yu were building their own business, they killed countless people. It was by relying on their iron and blood methods that the prototype of the Huarong Empire was formed. This young man was able to kill the enemy without batting an eyelid at such a young age. He was definitely not a simple person. When did the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Union become so strong? Unforeseen events were unforeseen events. The competition still had to continue. The bloodstains on the stage couldn't be cleaned up for the time being. After the two corpses were carried down, Rong Fei announced the start of the third round. Nian Bing gave Rong Bing an encouraging look. Rong Bing's face added a bit of coldness. The moment he stepped on the stage, a strong fighting spirit swept through his whole body. Among the people present, only he understood the whole purpose of Nian Bing's killing. It wasn't to reduce the number of enemies, but more importantly, it was for himself. That water magician from the Qilu Empire had a bye in the first round, and the next round was Group 1's bye. Tomorrow, he would be facing the water magician from Group 1's Group 5. Nian Bing was afraid that he wouldn't be able to recover after fighting with Qianhuan Bingyun, so she lured that water magician to the stage and killed him. This way, he would have more time to rest. He wouldn't have to worry about anything in today's competition. For his brother's actions, Rong Bing only felt gratitude. Qianhuan Bingyun slowly stepped on the stage. Even when Nian Bing killed her opponent, her expression didn't change in the slightest. Huarong Empire's fire magician, Rong Bing. Rong Bing deliberately emphasized his name. His goal today was to melt the iceberg in front of him. Ice God Tower's ice and snow priestess, Bing Yun. Bing Yun's pleasant voice and cold tone were her distinctive characteristics. Rong Fei took a deep look at Rong Bing. After giving him an encouraging look, he immediately announced the start of the competition. This was the third match of the day, and it was also expected to be the most exciting match. Nian Bing's gaze became abnormally hot. He waited. She was waiting for the battle between her elder brother and the successor of the Ice Goddess. The fire cloud cover appeared again. Rong Fei retreated to the side and announced the start of the match. Unlike the previous two matches, where attacks were launched at the start of the match, Ice Melt and Frozen Cloud didn't move. They didn't want to give each other a chance. A red flame surrounded Ice Melt's body and rose into the air, while Frozen Cloud's body was surrounded by a blue light. Red and blue. They each occupied half of the stage. Although the two hadn't really attacked, the ice and fire magic elements in the air had already begun to attack each other. A strong smell of gunpowder spread between the four cold eyes. Melting Ice moved first. He stretched out his right hand, and a magic staff made of red coral appeared in his hand. There were 9 fiery red gems inlaid on the magic staff. As he waved it gently, the fire elements around him became active. Although it was not a divine magic staff, it was not a divine magic staff. Although it wasn't a magic staff, its power was definitely not small. The situation on the stage suddenly changed. The originally clear blue and red simultaneously turned blue. That wasn't because Frozen Cloud's attack covered the ice melting energy, but rather because the originally red flames around his body had turned blue. Just this point alone was enough to cause a huge commotion. This was already a symbol of his archmage strength. The huge pressure continued to spread towards Bingyun. The ice aura she emitted gradually shrank towards her body under the pressure. However, Bingyun didn't move, as if this had nothing to do with her. Nian Bing had experienced the power of blue flames before. Furthermore, she could use it now. If fire magic wasn't looked at according to the magic stages that could be used, there were 3 types of fire magic. The color of flames could be divided into 3 levels. The most common was naturally red flames, and when a mage's penetrative power reached red flames, it meant that he had entered the realm of a sorcerer. Blue flames were called true flames, and their heat was at least 3 times that of red flames. The most powerful type was purple flames. They were also called heavenly flames. In the previous battle with Prince Rong, Nian Bing had tried her best but still couldn't resist the flaming lion that Prince Rong had condensed using heavenly flames. Heavenly flames consumed a lot of magic power. A fire archmage could only release an instant attack with all their strength. Any attack that used heavenly flame clogs could reach the level of a level 11 forbidden spell. Rong Bing took a step forward and slowly raised the red coral staff in his hand. The blue flames burned even more fiercely. With so many fire elements as the foundation, no matter what kind of fire magic was used, the incantation time would be reduced by a lot. At this moment, the most nervous person in the audience was Yi Nua. Her small hands were already tightly gripping her dress. She was so nervous that her delicate body was slightly trembling, afraid that her lover would be injured. Bingyun finally moved. Her shoulders shook slightly, and the ice elements that were originally suppressed suddenly counterattacked, pushing back the blue flames that were attacking the center of the stage. Rong Bing only saw a blur in front of him, and there were actually 9 Bingyuns in front of him. These weren't space magic, but 9 ice sculptures formed from ice. Without question, the real Bingyun was definitely behind one of the ice sculptures. The cold incantation slowly sounded. Bingyun's attack was about to begin. To be able to condense 9 ice sculptures in an instant, even Nian Bing, who was also proficient in ice magic, admitted that she couldn't do it without leaving a trace. She stood on Rong Bing's side, but also couldn't find Bingyun's position. Rong Bing knew that he couldn't wait any longer. "O great god of fire! Please allow me to borrow your right hand, to let the flames descend upon the world, to pounce on all evil forces, to let the flames illuminate the earth, to destroy all obstacles. Fire god's right hand." The blue flames ignored the ice element's suppression and instantly condensed in front of Rong Bing. Nian Bing was shocked. She had a new understanding of her brother's strength. She never would have thought that Rong Bing could actually use this magic. It was different from the fire god's left hand that Nian Bing often used. This fire god's right hand was a level 9 magic that could only be used by magicians close to the level of Magister. Nian Bing knew that she couldn't do this. Her brother's fire magic was indeed stronger than hers. Something's not right. Nian Bing discovered a problem. Rong Bing's body was very stable, and there weren't any signs of excessive magic consumption. However, the 9 red gems on the magic staff in his hand were emitting a strange light. Yes, it was this magic staff's effect that allowed her brother to use Fire God's right hand so smoothly. In that case, would her own Fire God's roar be able to do the same thing? Yes, it definitely could. The Fire God stone was a top-grade god stone. An idea flashed through her mind. Nian Bing suddenly realized that she had always kept the treasure trove by her side and hadn't excavated it. If she could fully utilize the power of her treasured magic knives, then her strength would be at its current level. At the very least, she should be able to reach the peak of Magister. Fire God's right hand appeared. Compared to Fire God's left hand, the right hand was obviously much thicker. The blue flames condensed into a huge right hand. The blue flames on the huge right hand converged, and pieces of blue armor covered the huge right hand. Rong Bing pointed his magic staff forward. Fire God's right hand suddenly rushed out, drawing an arc in the air. Without the blue flames, the light from Fire God's right hand was actually like ice magic. However, in the next moment, the 9 ice sculptures disappeared without warning. Not even a trace of water was left behind. They were completely vaporized by the scorching aura. Rong Bing didn't get excited because he destroyed the other party's ice sculptures in one fell swoop. This was because he realized that he had already robbed Bing Yun's figure. The surroundings had completely turned into a world of ice. Inside the fire cloud shield, it was a huge ice shield. The surface area of the ice shield was very large and didn't look solid. However, there was no ice at all, leaving him a space that was just enough for him to stand on. Rong Fei looked at the solid ice that was constantly condensing in front of him in surprise. His brows were tightly knitted, and no one knew what he was thinking about. Rong Bing's heart was slightly flustered. Fire God's right hand was in front of him, and he quickly blasted 5 punches to the surroundings. Immediately, 5 huge holes were blasted in the ice wall that surrounded him. However, he still couldn't find Bing Yun's figure. Pieces of strange ice were still condensing. Some of the ice was like a mirror that reflected Rong Bing's appearance. The cold aura was constantly pressing inward. Although he had Fire God's right hand to protect his body, Rong Bing could still feel his magical power being consumed rapidly. Rong Bing didn't act rashly. He used his mental strength to explore the surrounding ice, trying to find Bing Yun's figure. He knew that Bing Yun's magic wouldn't be any easier than his. Once he locked onto her position and launched a thunderous attack, she definitely wouldn't be able to resist. Therefore, he was looking for an opportunity. Even if he could only find Bing Yun's figure at the last moment, he still had the confidence to win. At this time, he remembered what his grandfather, Prince Rong, said. In the case of similar magical power, technique and control of magic were the key to a mage's victory. When his mental strength came into contact with the ice, he could only feel the cold aura. The coldness stimulated Rong Bing's mental strength, causing him to feel dizzy. Even with the help of a high-grade magic staff, it was extremely taxing to maintain a 9th-grade magic. He couldn't maintain this magic for much longer. At this time, a strange change occurred. The ice shield that surrounded Rong Bing and was the same size as the competition stage suddenly spun. At first, it spun very slowly, but the spinning speed kept increasing. Ice fog rose from the ice shield, and all kinds of illusions were constantly produced on the smooth ice surface and ice fog. The attack that Rong Bing was waiting for did not come. The surrounding cold air was getting colder and colder. His heart was beating faster and faster. Nian Bing, it seems that I can only rely on you to defeat her. You have to watch carefully. Thinking of this, Rong Bing suddenly raised the magic staff in his hand. With a loud shout, the fire god's right hand rushed to the sky. Nian Bing also couldn't see Bing Yun's figure below the stage. The huge ice shield also blocked everyone's vision. He wanted to use his mental strength to explore, but his mental strength couldn't penetrate the fire cloud shield outside. Other than the initial attack when the ice shield was first formed, Rong Bing didn't make any other sound. Seeing the huge ice shield spinning quickly, he couldn't help but feel anxious. This Bing Yun was indeed worthy of the title of Thousand Illusions. She actually took advantage of the time when her brother was forming the fire god's right hand to use the magic that controlled the entire competition stage. Just when Yen Bing didn't know whether Rong Bing could successfully defeat Bing Yun, the huge ice shield suddenly shone with a blue light. Without any warning, an unusually strong explosion occurred. The fire cloud shield sank into ice powder, and the spinning ice shield was completely blown to pieces. Yen Bing was shocked. He knew that Rong Bing had detonated the fire god's right hand. With such a strong explosive force, could he withstand it while inside the ice shield? Subconsciously, he took a step in the direction of the competition stage. The ice mist and the fire cloud touched and gradually disappeared. Rong Bing's figure appeared in the arena. His face was abnormally pale, and a layer of red flames flashed around his body. A necklace appeared in front of his chest, and the red gem on the necklace was dim. He relied on the red coral staff in his hand to support his body so that he wouldn't fall. Frozen Cloud stood not too far away from melted ice. Compared to when she had first stood on the stage, she hadn't changed much. However, her chest was heaving up and down. It was clear that she had consumed a lot of mana. She had an extra magic staff about a foot long in her hand. The whole staff seemed to be made of ice, and it emitted a faint ice mist. Rong Bing said with difficulty, "Good, as expected of Qianhuan Bingyun. I can't compare to you in terms of magic. Can you tell me the name of the magic you just used?" Bingyun said calmly, "You are an opponent worthy of respect. What I just used was the Thousand Illusions domain that my teacher specially created for me. In this ice domain, I am not far away. Although you are very strong, you used your big magic too early, which gave me the chance to use the Thousand Illusions domain. In this world of ice, how can a fire archmage like you win? Thousand Illusions domain, okay, I admit defeat." Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Rong Bing fell unconscious. However, he still stood on the stage with the help of the red coral staff and didn't fall down. "Rong Bing!" Inua shouted anxiously. A red figure flashed, and Rong Ji appeared on the stage. He looked at Bing Yun full of fighting spirit, and carried Rong Bing's body away from the stage. Yen Bing let out a sigh of relief. Although Rong Bing was unconscious, he knew that it was only because he had used too much magic and had been hit by the impact of magic. At the same time, he could also see that Bing Yun was injured. When Vulcan's right hand exploded, her body must have been severely shaken. Although she tried her best to maintain her original appearance, the hand holding the staff was trembling slightly. Although it wasn't obvious, Yen Bing could still see it clearly. The fourth match was between Team 2's number 3, Rong Ji, and Team 2's number 4, a spatial magician from the Ottoman Empire. At this time, because the two magicians from the Qilu Empire were disabled, the two groups had a slight change in their arrangement. Team 1's number 1, Mu Rong, number 2, Fei Fei, number 3, Bing Yun, number 4, Rong Bing, number 5, dead. Team 2's number 1, Nian Bing, number 2, dead. Number 3, Rong Ji, number 4, a spatial magician from the Ottoman Empire, number 5, Mu Jing. Rong Ji carried Rong Bing off the stage and returned to the trial hall. At this time, Inua also quietly left, obviously to take care of her beloved man. Rong Ji didn't say anything and directly stepped onto the stage. The spatial magician from the Ottoman Empire was already prepared. Seeing Rong Ji on the stage, he smiled at him, revealing a pair of cute little canine teeth. "I will definitely defeat you. Remember my name, I am Lon Lon, a spatial magician." Rong Ji indifferently said, "Huarong Empire's fire magician, Rong Ji." The smile on Lon Lan's face suddenly disappeared and he coldly snorted, "I won't be merciful." The hatred between the Ottoman Empire and the Huarong Empire had long since worsened in the last war. Facing an enemy magician, Lon Lan's eyes almost spat fire. Rong-ji still had the same wooden expression. I don't kill women. Rong-fei looked at his grandnephew and shook his head helplessly. He shook his head helplessly. Rong-ji's talent in magic was no less than ice melts. Unfortunately, he was only interested in magic. Otherwise, the third generation of the Rong family wouldn't have allowed Rong Bing to dominate the family. Let the match begin. Lan Lan's reaction was clearly much faster than Rong Ji's. A small silver magic staff appeared with a flip of her wrist. Taking a step forward, the space around her suddenly became illusory. She quickly chanted an incantation. Relying on the low-level space-time distortion magic around her, ordinary low-level magic was useless against her. Rong Ji's eyes revealed a rare trace of pity. He shook his head and didn't even take out his magic staff. He also chanted an incantation, and a red flame suddenly rose. Unlike the melting ice, his blue flames did not burn to the level of true fire. His chanting speed was very fast, and his voice was low like a murmur, making it impossible for people to hear what he was chanting. However, the flames around his body became stronger and stronger. Nian Bing saw Rong Ji's incantation and couldn't help but be shocked. He was very clear about the difficulty of this incantation. Changing the intonation of the incantation required a thorough understanding of magic. He had dared to experiment before, but because he spent most of his energy on training in mimicry magic, he hadn't succeeded until now. At this time, he had already regarded this elder brother of his as the strongest competitor in the group. Lan Lan's incantation speed was also very fast. Perhaps because her magic was of a lower level than Rong Ji's, she actually completed it first. Space-time rotation. The silver light turned into a halo and scattered. Wherever the halo passed, the space on the competition stage gradually became distorted. No one knew what she was doing. This seemed to be a special space magic. Lan Lan couldn't help but feel a little proud. She seemed to have researched this magic herself. It was because of this magic that she could participate in this competition as a space magician, whose attack power was relatively weak. Rong Ji opened his eyes and stared blankly at the approaching silver halo. The flames around his body suddenly rushed out, but when the flames met with the silver halo, the flames turned around and rushed towards Rong Ji. Rong Ji didn't panic. He just looked at Lan Lan and shook his head. Lan Lan was slightly angry and said, "Why are you shaking your head? Do you think you can win? No matter what magic you use, under the effect of space-time rotation, it will be applied to you. Hurry up and admit defeat, and I will spare your life." Rong Ji calmly said, "You are too complacent. Although your magic is strange, I am a fire magician. So what if the magic backfires? No matter what kind of magic it is, there is a limit to how much it can withstand. Take my attack." Meteor shower. The red light around his body condensed into balls. Although the silver halo had already covered his body, Rong Ji didn't seem to notice. Meteors. Meteors condensed from fire appeared one by one. At the beginning, there were only 3 or 5. Gradually, there were dozens of them, each with an unusually violent aura. Rong Ji didn't attack Lan Lan, nor did he control these meteors. He just let them fly around the competition stage. Seeing this, Nian Bing's eyes couldn't help but brighten. She already understood Rong Ji's method. Although Lan Lan's magic was strange, the main point of her magic was to form a spatial force field on the competition stage. In this spatial force field, any enemy's attack on her would be reflected back. However, this spatial force field had a certain tolerance. When the attack reached a certain level, the spatial force field would no longer exist. Rong Ji's method was very domineering. He relied on his superior magic to win. Although this method wasn't very clever, it was undoubtedly very effective. The sound of glass shattering came from the competition stage. Rong Ji controlled the meteors to explode one after another. It even affected Rong Fei. Every explosion caused the entire competition stage to shake violently. The sound of glass shattering also became more obvious. Finally, the space-time rotation was no longer effective. Dozens of meteors had already hit Lan Lan's body. As long as Rong-ji willed it, he would be able to turn this space attribute girl into ashes. Lan Lan's expression changed greatly. You cheated. You cheated. Oh. In the face of defeat, she actually cried. Rong-ji was stunned. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. He hurriedly stopped his meteors and said somewhat woodenly, "You lost." Lan Lan glared hatefully at Rong-ji, tears rolling down her beautiful face. "You're the one who lost. You cheated." Rong-ji frowned. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. At the side, Rong-fei also didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This Ottoman Empire was too much of a child's play. The contestant they sent was actually so weak. She was like a child. The competition ended like a farce. Although Lan Lan didn't want to admit it, she didn't lose. Emperor Hua Tian announced that the contestants who won on the first day of the competition would receive a reward of 100 purple coins. The competition would continue tomorrow. The contestants who didn't have to come. Nian Bing was worried about her brother's condition. While she was looking for him in the distance, Inua appeared. "Nian Bing, come. Your brother asked me to call you over." Inua's eyes were a little red and swollen. It was obvious that she had cried. Nian Bing was overjoyed. She hurriedly went forward and asked, "Sister-in-law, how is my brother? Is his injury serious?" Inua glanced at the people who were gradually dispersing and said, "Come with me first." Under her lead, the two walked into the palace. With Inua's status, naturally no one would stop them. As they walked, Nianbing said to Inua, "Your brother's injury isn't serious. With the fire cloud necklace that he's wearing, most of the impact from the explosion of Fire God's right hand was offset. However, this failure is a heavy blow to his spirit. You have to persuade him more. You also know the relationship between the Huarong Empire and the Ice Moon Empire. Your Rong family and the Ice God Tower have always been rivals. This failure..." Nian Bing nodded. She said, "Sister-in-law, don't worry. I will persuade him more." When Nian Bing arrived at the place where Rong Bing was recuperating, she was surprised to find that Inua had actually brought Rong Bing to her boudoir. Nian Bing couldn't help but smile bitterly. She stopped outside the door and said, "Sister-in-law, you and my brother haven't officially married yet. It seems inappropriate for you to let him recuperate here. Is it appropriate for me to go in?" Inua snorted and said, "What's inappropriate about it? I don't believe that anyone dares to talk nonsense. Even grandfather won't oppose it. If others talk nonsense, I will cut off their tongue. Hurry up and go in with me. Aren't you anxious?" Rong Bing was lying on Inua's bed in silence, looking at the ceiling. His eyes were a little blurred, as if he was thinking about something. He didn't even notice that Nian Bing and Inua had come in. Inua whispered to Nian Bing, "You talk to him. It's easier for you men to communicate with each other. Nian Bing, you have to help him more. Other than you, I really can't think of anyone else who can help him recover. Do you know? Since you came, Rong Bing has smiled more than I've known him for so many years. I'm a little jealous." Nian Bing nodded to Inua and didn't say anything. However, his eyes had already told Inua everything. Inua seemed to be relieved. She slowly retreated and closed the door. "Brother, I'm here." Nian Bing walked to the bed and sat down. Rong Bing's eyes looked at Nian Bing with a little more vigor. "You saw it. I lost." His voice was very calm, without a trace of dejection. Nian Bing sighed and said, "Winning or losing is not important. Losing this time doesn't mean that you will lose in the future. Isn't that right?" Rong Bing's face showed a trace of a smile and said, "Don't worry, I can still bear this blow. I asked Inua to call you over, not to hear you comfort me. I want to hear what you think about Qian Huan Bingyun's magic." Nian Bing was relieved. That woman's magic is indeed very powerful. What's the matter with the 1,000 illusion domain that she mentioned? I couldn't see the changes from the outside. Brother, you were in it, so you should feel it the most. However, did you notice something? Although she won, she was also injured. Rong Bing proudly said, That's of course. We are both magic shooters. If she could completely defeat me, then all my years of magic training would have been in vain. Nian Bing thought for a while and said, Brother, what was the situation at that time? How did you lose? Also, what's the matter with this so-called domain? I have seen the concept of domain in some magic books, but I still don't understand it. What is a domain? Could it be referring to the range of magic? Rong Bing shook his head and said, Of course it's not that simple. A magic domain is not something mysterious. Every mage can have their own domain. It's just that the strength of the domain is different. The so-called domain refers to a space that is built according to one's imagination with one's magic as the foundation. The stronger the magic, the bigger the space. And because this space is built according to the mage's own thoughts, it will produce specific effects. For example, the domain that Thousand Illusion Ice Cloud used today, the most obvious feature of it was that it excluded all magic elements apart from the ice element. Within her domain, my mana would be depleted at an even faster rate, and I wouldn't be able to replenish it. Although I broke her domain in the end by relying on the explosion of the fire god's right hand, I faintly felt that the power of her domain hadn't been fully displayed. It's very likely that there are still some secrets in it. After all, it's a domain that the ice goddess priestess guided her to complete. The changes in it can't be that simple. The reason why Qianhuan Bingyun was injured wasn't because her domain wasn't strong enough, but because she didn't expect that I would take the risk of injuring myself by detonating the fire god's right hand. That's why I was able to injure her. Nian Bing, if you meet her, you must be careful. Her control over the ice element has already reached the point where she can command it like an extension of her arm, especially this Thousand Illusion domain. The best way to deal with it is to not let it display its might. Nian Bing thought for a moment and said, Brother, her magic power seems to be at the level of a magic shooter. But when you were fighting, did you feel that her magic aura seemed to be purer than yours? This allowed her to consume less magic power to achieve the same effect. Although your magic power was equal in the beginning, even if she didn't use that Thousand Illusion domain, her magic power would gradually gain the upper hand in the battle. Rong Bing looked at Nian Bing with some astonishment. Recalling the previous battle, he nodded in deep agreement. The onlooker sees more clearly. You're right. Her magic purity is very high. I always thought that my own magic purity was already very good, but compared to her, it's still a bit lacking. What's going on? Could it be that the ice goddess priestess is really that mystical? Or does she have some kind of special magic item? Nian Bing shook her head and said, I'm afraid that only she knows this kind of secret. Brother, you can rest assured. When I meet her, I will definitely avenge you. Chapter 107. Rong Bing smiled and said, Of course, I have confidence in you. Your magic changes are no less than hers. Nian Bing, listen to me. If it's not necessary, don't kill too many people. I know you did what you did in the competition today mostly for me, but it's obviously unwise to make more enemies. Do you understand? A cold light flashed through Nian Bing's eyes. Brother, you've seen through me. Rong Bing nodded and said, Unfortunately, I made you worry for nothing. In the end, I still lost. Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, During the competition today, you heard what that magician called Ao Lu said to me on the stage, right? At that time, he was already my enemy. Besides, in front of Prince Rong, I would never show weakness. Rong Bing sighed inwardly. He knew that Nian Bing's estrangement with the Rong family still existed. After all, the death of Rong Tian and his wife was a great shock to him. It couldn't be easily resolved by a few words of comfort and his own family affection. Nian Bing, I won't persuade you much, but you must guard your heart well. Don't let it be devoured by the devil. Excessive killing will not only affect your heart, it will also affect your magic. Do you understand? Nian Bing smiled and said, Brother, I will remember what you said. You can rest assured. I'm very clear about the difference between benefactors and enemies. Someone once tried to persuade me like this, but how can I not take revenge? I can't, and you can't do the same. The hatred for my parents is absolutely irreconcilable. As long as I can avenge them, even if I really become a devil, I will do it. Rong Bing was startled. It was the first time he saw Nian Bing show such an extreme side. He couldn't help but worry. But at this moment, he really didn't know how to persuade his brother. Brother, have a good rest. Sister-in-law is really good to you. She actually let you recuperate in her boudoir. Although you don't have to compete tomorrow, you should still take care of your body. Don't work too hard at night. Nian Bing teased Rong Bing, making the originally heavy atmosphere in the room become relaxed again. Rong Bing laughed and scolded, You brat, you only know how to make fun of me. Hurry up and go back. Feng Nu is still waiting for you. Nian Bing nodded slightly and said, Brother, although I don't have a match tomorrow, I will still come over. At that time, I will observe the other matches. Then, analyze their strength and plan accordingly. Rong Bing nodded and said, Judging from today's competition, apart from Qian Huanyun, the strongest contestants are you and Rong Ji. That Mu Rong's nature magic also has a domain. But he needs too much time. With our strength, we won't give him that chance. Flames won't promote the growth of plants. As for his sister who didn't participate, she shouldn't be too strong. You will have a bye in the next round, and then you will have to face Mu Jing. At that time, if you are careful, there shouldn't be any problems. However, if you want to be the final champion, you must defeat Rong Ji. Although I didn't see Rong Ji's performance before, I think it should be very easy for him to defeat that magician from the Ottoman Empire, right? Nian Bing nodded and carefully explained Rong Ji's previous point. After listening to Nian Bing's description, Rong Bing was shocked. You're saying that Rong Ji has already found a way to shorten the incantation? Meteor shower isn't an ordinary magic. If I didn't have a believer's magic staff, it would be difficult for me to use this magic. But not only can he quickly chant the incantation, he can also control it so that it won't hurt anyone. It seems that Rong Ji's overall strength is not weaker than mine. He doesn't know your identity. Once you meet him, I'm afraid he won't hold back. You must be careful. Don't let a scene of brothers fighting each other. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, Brother, do you think I'll need him to hold back? The battle with Rong Ji will be the final shot before Qianhuan Bingyun and I meet. As long as he isn't a magus, I have confidence in winning. Miss, you're injured? A cry of surprise came from the carriage. Ever since leaving the Ice God Tower, Qianhuan Bingyun had been living in her own carriage. She didn't even go out to eat. It's okay. It's just that my meridians were shaken. As expected of the Rong family's descendant, he isn't weaker than me in terms of magic power. If it wasn't for the miraculous use of the 1000 illusion domain, it wouldn't have been easy for me to win against him. None of the Rong family's people are simple. I still have 2 powerful enemies to face later. Young miss, should we tell the 7th prince about your current situation? I remember he said that he had brought a lot of healing panacea with him. It should be good for your injuries. No need. I don't want others to know about my injuries. However, today's competition is very strange. The strength of that magus from the Ice Moon Empire's Magus Guild, who was originally weak, greatly exceeded my expectations. He and the other contestant from the Rong family are both obstacles to my final victory. Miss, who did the Ice Moon Empire send this time? It should be Long Ji's daughter. Is she very strong? No, it's not Long Ji's daughter. It's a young man. His name seems to be Nian Bing. It sounds familiar. If I remember correctly, the chef from Aulin City was also called Nian Bing? Then should I call the 7th prince over and ask him? Forget it. I need to rest. I still have a battle tomorrow. Before I left, My master told me that no matter what, I must become the final champion of this competition in the Huarong Empire. I was a little careless today, but from tomorrow onwards, I won't be careless anymore." Her ice-cold voice was filled with chilliness. "The glory of the ice goddess will always shine upon you." Nian Bing left the imperial palace and slowly walked towards the direction of the inn. Although he purposely made the atmosphere more relaxed, Rong Bing's words still deeply touched his heart. "Will killing really turn me into a demon? Why is it like this? Dad, Mom, how good would it be if you were still alive? Nian Bing misses you so much. So many years have passed, but I still don't have the ability to go up the Ice God Tower. However, you don't have to worry. No matter what others say, I will definitely avenge you. Even if I have to pay with my life, I won't let that Ice Goddess Priestess have an easy life." Thinking of revenge, he couldn't help but think of the Earth Fire Dragon King Garamandes, who helped him the most after he left the Peach Blossom Forest. "Garamandes, when are you coming back? Once this competition is over, I will be able to get all 7 magic blade. I can only complete the mimicry magic. I still need your guidance. Hurry up and come back." In Nian Bing's heart, Garamandes was like a teacher and a friend to him. In the beginning, when he cooked for Garamandes, it was purely for the sake of survival. However, as his understanding of Garamandes deepened, he gradually discovered that although Garamandes had a bad mouth, he was indeed worthy of the title of Fire Dragon King. From the time he met Garamandes, although Garamandes' mouth was powerful, he had never killed a single human. His various abuses towards him had also benefited him greatly, and he had even imparted the miraculous mimicry magic to him. These favors caused Nian Bing to abandon all prejudices when cooking for Garamandes later on, and cook for him wholeheartedly. Garamandes had already left for a period of time. Nian Bing missed him very much. He believed in his joking voice, believed in his pretentious appearance, and also believed in his vast and profound knowledge. Nian Bing, who was in deep thought, didn't notice that a huge fatso was standing on the side of the street. This fatso was over 2 meters tall, and his huge neck was like several water tanks combined. He was holding a bag of food in his hand and continuously stuffing it into his mouth. His small eyes, which were squeezed by his fat, were staring at Nian Bing. This kid should be the ice and fire chef that appeared in the Ice Moon Empire. "Baby Belly, you're about to have a good meal. According to the information I gathered the day before yesterday, he seems to be participating in some kind of competition. I'll wait for a few more days. Hee kid, you can't escape from my grasp. I don't know if the delicious food he makes is as good as those guys from the Clear Wind sect said, but I hope it is." Nian Bing suddenly felt his spiritual power tremble slightly, and his ears heated up for no reason. Under the guidance of his spiritual power, he subconsciously looked in a direction, but all he saw was air. "What's going on? Is someone following me? No, could it be the guys from the Feng people again?" Thinking of this, his heart secretly tightened. When his rationality encountered Feng news matters, he would often be a little flustered. Using his fastest speed, he rushed back to the hotel. Feng Nu was meditating in the room. Seeing that Feng Nu was safe and sound, Nian Bing couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, he was unaware that his actions were being watched by a pair of small eyes. Feng Nu felt Nian Bing's breath and woke up from her meditation. "You're back." Her voice was very calm. "Aren't you going to ask me about the results of today's competition?" Nian Bing looked at his beloved woman with a smile. Feng Nu shook her head, taking the initiative to walk in front of Nian Bing and into his embrace. "I believe that you will definitely win, so there's no need to ask." After saying this, she tightly hugged Nian Bing's arm. Nian Bing's heart was moved. The heat from Feng Nu's body already told him that she was definitely not as relaxed as she said. Her heartbeat and the temperature of her skin proved that she had not entered into a meditative state at all. "Silly girl, you must be hungry. I'll cook for you. It's already past noon." Nian Bing gently stroked Feng Nu's pink hair, his heart filled with pity. Feng Nu raised her head to look at Nian Bing, her eyes revealing a trace of a smile. No, you just finished the competition, so you must be tired. You don't need to cook for me today. Nian Bing stared blankly for a moment. Feng Nu had always relied on his cooking skills. Then what should we do? Are we going out to eat? But the food we bought yesterday will go bad if we don't eat it. Feng Nu mysteriously pointed to the table and said, I've always wanted you to cook for me. Today I also made a delicious meal for you to taste. Nian Bing then discovered that the table was covered with a layer of cloth. The cloth was supported by a sword. Feng Nu stepped forward and removed the cloth, immediately revealing 6 dishes and a soup. Nian Bing said in surprise, When did you start cooking? I remember that you only knew how to cook porridge. Feng Nu giggled, stepped forward and hugged Nian Bing's arm. I've been with you, the great chef, for so long, so I also know how to cook. Don't you think I'm very smart? Nian Bing praised. You are indeed very smart. It seems that you did a good job. Cooking pays attention to color, aroma, and taste. From the color, you can already be a master. Today I'll taste my future wife's cooking skills. With that, he picked up the chopsticks. His heart was filled with warmth. What was more wonderful than his future wife's cooking, waiting for him to come back and taste it? But he was at a loss, unaware that his nightmare was about to come. Nian Bing was really hungry. He couldn't wait to pick up the food with his chopsticks and put it into his mouth. Just as he chewed, the smile on his face suddenly froze. Is this delicious? His gaze turned to Feng Nu, who had a look of expectation. He resisted the urge to vomit and swallowed the food that didn't taste anything other than salty food. How is it? How is it? Is it delicious? Feng Nu looked at Nian Bing excitedly and asked. After all, this was the first time she had cooked so many complicated dishes. Nian Bing squeezed out a smile and praised. Good, it's delicious. As long as it's cooked by you, it's delicious. Feng Nu said proudly. I'm smart, right? I learned so quickly just by watching you cook. Nian Bing said tentatively. You eat too. There are so many dishes. Feng Nu said. After you left, I was hungry and went out to eat a lot. When I came back, I was busy cooking for you. I'm so full now, I can't eat anymore. These are all specially made for you. Your appetite is not smaller than mine. Eat it all. Don't waste other people's good intentions. Nian Bing swallowed his saliva and looked at Feng Nu's gentle eyes. He smiled as if there was really a table of delicious dishes in front of him. He didn't show a trace of discomfort and quickly put the food into his mouth. He chewed quickly and swallowed quickly. He ate happily, like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds, all the food into his stomach. The Phoenix Maiden watched with satisfaction as Nian Bing finished all the food. Is it good? Nian Bing gently looked at Feng Nu and said, Of course it's delicious. Then I'll cook for you every day in the future, okay? How about this, in the future you cook for me and I'll cook for you. Looking at Feng Nu's expectant eyes, Nian Bing smiled and nodded. Okay. Then let's start from dinner tonight. I'm going to meditate and recall the problems in today's competition and the strength of the contestants. Feng Nu nodded and said, Okay, you meditate. I'll guard you. An hour later, Feng Nu, who was guarding Nian Bing, suddenly found that Nian Bing's face was very pale. Large drops of sweat flowed down his forehead. She was shocked and quickly came to Nian Bing's side. She put her hand on his shoulder and carefully transferred her 9-leaved dou qi into Nian Bing's body to check his condition. She was afraid that he would go crazy. Soon, Feng Nu found that Nian Bing's meridians and blood flow were somewhat chaotic, especially near his dantian. The blood flow was very fast and there were signs of chaos. She quickly gathered her 9-leaved dou qi and helped Nian Bing sort out the chaotic breath. Nian Bing's face gradually became better. He opened his eyes and said, Feng Nu, I'm fine. I'm going to the washroom. In the morning, when the sun shone into the room, Nian Bing almost crawled out of the washroom. His whole body was sore and the feeling was not good. The figure in front of him had already split into two, but this time, he felt that he was finally completely liberated. Feng Nu, who was waiting outside the washroom, quickly came forward to support him. "How is it? Are you better?" Nian Bing reluctantly nodded and said weakly, "How many times has it been?" Feng Nu smiled bitterly. "The 23rd time." "How could this be? Are you poisoned? Since you came back yesterday, you have to go to the washroom almost every half an hour. You don't have to participate in today's competition." Nian Bing reluctantly smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I just happened to have a bye today. I want to sleep for a while. I'm much better now. You can cook me some porridge for lunch." Feng Nu nodded and helped Nian Bing to lie on the bed. The feeling of weakness came again and again, but Nian Bing's heart was very calm. He closed his eyes and tightly held Feng Nu's small hand. His heart was warm, although he had gone to the washroom so many times, but he didn't blame the Phoenix Lady at all. Even if he had to do it all over again, he would still eat all the food. His consciousness gradually disappeared in a daze. Nian Bing, who had been using meditation to replace sleep for a long time, finally fell into a deep sleep again. After an unknown amount of time, a rapid knocking sound woke Nian Bing up from his sleep. He opened his eyes and found Feng Nu looking at him. After sleeping, he felt that his body was much better. "Go and open the door. I'm afraid it's my brother." Feng Nu agreed and let go of the hand that was held by Nian Bing. He quickly walked to the door and opened it. Sure enough, Inua and Rong Bing were standing outside the door. When Rong Bing saw Feng Nu, he immediately asked anxiously, "Feng Nu, where's my brother? Why didn't he go to the palace today?" Feng Nu let the two of them into the room and said with a bitter smile, "You can go and see him. He fell ill yesterday. I wanted to invite a doctor to take a look at him, but he didn't agree no matter what. Now he's much better, but he's still a little weak." Rong Bing was stunned for a moment and hurried inside. When he saw Nian Bing, he was shocked. Was this still his brother? They had not seen each other for a day, but his face was sallow and his eyes were sunken. It was obvious that his body was in a half-collapsed state. His eyes were lifeless, and the strong magic fluctuations around his body had disappeared. "Nian Bing, what's wrong with you? How did you become like this?" Nian Bing said, "Brother, sister-in-law, you're here. Come and sit. I knew that you would find me today because I didn't go to the palace. How's your body? Have you recovered?" Rong Bing said anxiously, "I'm fine. Let's not talk about me first. What happened to you?" Nian Bing said with a bitter smile, "It's nothing. My stomach was a little uncomfortable, but it's much better now. Don't worry, I won't delay the competition tomorrow." Feng Nu said unhappily, "You're fine? Since you came back yesterday, you went to the toilet a total of 23 times. How can you have holes? In your current state, you won't be able to recover your vitality tomorrow. How can you participate?" Rong Bing frowned and said, "What happened? Nian Bing, tell me, did someone do something to you?" Nian Bing shook her head and said, "Brother, I'm really fine. I didn't go today. How's the competition? Who won?" Rong Bing said, "Today's competition went very quickly. Needless to say, in our first group, Qianhuan Bingyun won again. Mu Rong had a bye, and that light magician lost to Qianhuan Bingyun. Because you killed those two guys from the Kiru Empire yesterday, both groups only had one match. In your group, Rong Ji also had a bye, and that space magician was given to Mu Jing. The only thing that I found strange was Mu Jing. Her nature magic was even more powerful than her brother's. She seemed to have reached the level of Archmage. Tomorrow's battle will be between you and Mu Jing. You must be careful. However, in your current state, are you really able to participate in the competition?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm in good health. I don't need to go to the toilet anymore. Resting for a day shouldn't be a problem. Brother, you should also appear tomorrow. You should also have a bye tomorrow. This way you can rest for a day. Rong Bing nodded and said, I'll have a by tomorrow, but I really hope that the one who will have a by tomorrow is you. Your current state, Nian Bing shook her head and said, even if Mu Jing is a archmage, so what? I will definitely defeat her. Rong Bing sighed and said, well, you have a good rest. I'll go back with Enua first. You really don't need to see a doctor? Nian Bing said, no need. I'm already in the cave and my magic power is abundant. I just need to restore some physical strength and it'll be fine. After all, we are not warriors. Rong Bing and Enua left. Feng Nu held a bowl of porridge and came to Nian Bing. She used the 9-leaf doqi to make the porridge and fed it to Nian Bing in small spoonfuls. Although the porridge cooked by Feng Nu was not delicious, it was no longer poison. Suddenly, Feng Nu's eyes flashed as if she thought of something. While feeding the porridge to Nian Bing, she said, or I'll go and find the magician called Mu Jing. Nian Bing was surprised and said, why are you looking for her? As long as you injure her, you don't need to compete tomorrow? Feng Nu didn't want Nian Bing to be in danger. After all, Nian Bing had killed Mu Rong and Mu Jing's servants. The other party would definitely not show mercy. She was very worried. Nian Bing smiled and said, no need. Believe me, I will win. You heard what I said to brother just now. I'm a magician. It's no big deal. I can use a few magic swords. Mu Jing is just relying on the strangeness of nature magic. For me, strangeness has no effect. I have already thought of a way to deal with her. You can rest assured. Really, you can't lie to me. If you have any injuries, don't worry, I still have to come back to eat the delicious food you make. And, after drinking the porridge you cooked, I feel much better. I'm going to start meditating. You have been guarding me for a day, you should rest for a while. No need you meditate. I will protect you. The distracting thoughts in his mind gradually disappeared, and Nian Bing gradually entered the ethereal state of meditation. When he entered the state of meditation, he was surprised to find that the weakness of his body made his spiritual energy feel particularly clear. It was as if he could clearly feel everything outside his body. The blue and red magic elements were constantly condensing in his body under the effect of his spiritual energy. They gathered in the upper and lower light balls in his body and circulated peacefully, just as Nian Bing had predicted. The weakness of his body didn't affect the strength of his magic power. As it continued to condense, his magic power gradually increased to its peak state. Ling Nianbing, who was sensitive to spiritual energy, had a lot of ideas. The first thing he thought of was the scene of Rong Bing using his magic staff on the first day of the competition. Although his magic staff wasn't very strong, it obviously couldn't compare to his roar of the fire god. However, he was far from being able to use it. Although his 6 magic swords could also increase his magic power, the increase wasn't obvious. Yes, he had 6 treasure troves by his side. If he could open all 6 treasure troves, how much help would it be to him? Thinking of this, Nian Bing subconsciously probed his spiritual energy into his spatial ring. The spatial ring originally belonged to Nian Bing, and its aura was connected to him. This was also the reason why Nian Bing didn't need to hold the sigh of the snow goddess and the roar of the fire god in his hands when he meditated. As long as there was a connection with his spiritual energy, he could still easily communicate with his magic sword. Although they were stored in the ring, their ability to help Nian Bing meditate didn't weaken at all. The 6 familiar balls of light appeared in front of Nian Bing's spiritual energy. Nian Bing first chose the righteous yang sword that he was most familiar with. After all, the first thing he practiced when he was young was fire magic. The righteous yang sword was a ball of red light in the spatial ring. The light flickered and was filled with the aura of fire. Nian Bing released his spiritual energy and slowly enveloped the aura of fire. He could clearly feel every change in it. What he was looking for was a change that he could use. Only then could he unleash the power of the fire god's sword. This was the first time Nian Bing had used his spiritual power to probe the Xingyang saber. When his spiritual power entered the Xingyang stallion's domain, he was shocked to find that what appeared in front of him was a sea of fire. The sea of fire was vast, and the Xingyang saber seemed to be roaring in a low voice. The closer he got to the core of this domain, Nian Bing realized that his spiritual power was being depleted. Gradually, everything around him turned from red to blue, and then from blue to purple. Everything became like a fog. Nian Bing's spiritual power was compressed into a small ball by the surging heavenly fire energy. He could only protect himself, but he couldn't go any further. However, he could faintly feel that there was something calling out to him from the core of the righteous Yang sword. It was an unusually familiar feeling. Spiritual light flashed as his spiritual energy was being suppressed and forced to retreat. Nian Bing suddenly understood that the core of the righteous Yang sword was its soul. Wasn't its soul formed by combining his blood with the aura of the stone of fire? As long as his spiritual energy could come into contact with the soul within the blade, then this flaming divine blade would be completely under his control. Its energy would also be completely used by him. At that time, it would truly be the roar of the god of fire. Thinking of this, Nian Bing suddenly understood. If the righteous Yang sword was like this, then what about the rest? Weren't all of the other swords like this? Although he understood this, he didn't continue to move towards the core of the righteous Yang sword. This was because he knew that with his current strength, he might not be able to control these top-grade divine swords. His spiritual energy was limited, and he still had to face a strong enemy tomorrow. Now was not the time to overexert himself. When everything calmed down, he would find a chance to see if he could break through the internal energy barrier. Thinking of this, Nian Bing carefully withdrew his spiritual energy from the righteous Yang sword and meditated in silence. By the time Nian Bing woke up from his meditation, the first rays of dawn had already appeared outside the window. It was gradually rising from the east. After a night of meditation, his body was in a much better condition. "You're awake. Have some more porridge." Feng Nu's gentle voice sounded. She brought a bowl of piping hot porridge to Nian Bing. Seeing the concern in Feng Nu's eyes, Nian Bing smiled and said, "I'm fine now." Passing the porridge to Nian Bing, Feng Nu was still worried and said, "Are you really fine? Today's competition." Nian Bing quickly gulped down the porridge and jumped up from the bed. He stretched his stiff body and said, "I'm really fine. Why would I lie to you?" Stretching out his hand, he pulled the Phoenix girl's bouncy body into his embrace. Feeling the compatibility between the two of them, he felt a sense of satisfaction. He unconsciously lowered his head and kissed the Phoenix girl's slender neck. Feng Nu shrunk her neck and said with a smile, "Stop it. It tickles. Looking at you, you're really fine now. Be careful in today's competition. I'll wait for you at home." Nian Bing cupped Feng Nu's face and kissed her red lip. "I'll be back soon. Let me hug you for a while." He loved the feeling of hugging Feng Nu. Their hearts were close and it was so wonderful. Only when he hugged Feng Nu could he temporarily put down the hatred in his heart. At this moment, Nian Bing couldn't help but think of Rong Bing's words. He sighed. Perhaps he had been blinded by hatred. He tightened his arms. Feng Nu's body was very warm. It warmed his body and also warmed his heart. After a long time, the sun outside shone into the room and bathed their bodies. Feng Nu seemed to have fallen asleep. Her head rested on Nian Bing's shoulder. Nian Bing gently stroked her long hair and felt Feng Nu's graceful curves. He felt an indescribable comfort in his heart. "Feng Nu, do you think I should be obsessed with revenge?" Feng Nu's eyes were still closed. "Revenge must be taken. The revenge for my parents is absolutely irreconcilable. As a son, how can I not avenge them? However, Nian Bing, you have to understand that your enemy is only the ice goddess's priest and not anyone else. Don't lose hope in this world because of hatred, okay? I know that you suffered a lot in your childhood. All these years, you've always been ahead of yourself. However, there are still many warm places in this world. You still have your family and me. I know that your heart is closed because of hatred. Because of hatred, it's cold. Don't be like this anymore, okay? I want to see your sunny side. I want to see your sunny smile. Your heart is kind, but because of hatred, it becomes too extreme and cold. Do you understand what I mean? Chapter 108. Nian Bing was silent for a while before saying, If I can't change my extreme views and hatred still affects my view of the world, will you still be with me? Feng Nu gently rubbed against Nian Bing's shoulder. Since I've already chosen, I've never thought of leaving. If you can't change your heart after you take your revenge, I'll accompany you to find a place with beautiful scenery. We'll no longer have any contact with the outside world and just live our own lives, okay? Nian Bing's body trembled slightly. Thank you, Feng Nu. I'll try my best to change myself. As long as you're by my side, my heart will be much calmer. Wait for me to come back. With warmth in her heart, Nian Bing kept recalling every word Feng Nu had said. She left the hotel. Today, she would be facing her second opponent in her group. On the third day of the competition, due to an accident on the first day, the Five Nations Emerging Magician competition had changed from 4 matches a day to 2 matches a day. Today, the first match was between Mu Rong and Bing Yun. Before this, Bing Yun had already won 2 matches and Mu Rong had only won 1 match. At least from the current situation, the two of them were most likely to be in the top 2 in the group. This match was especially important for Mu Rong. As long as he could defeat Qianhuan Bingyun, not only would he be first in the group, he might even be first in the entire competition. Nian Bing and Rong Bing were watching from below. None of the other contestants, including them, were optimistic about Mu Rong's chances. Qianhuan Bingyun was not only strong, but from the first match with Rong Bing to yesterday's match with magician Feifei, she had shown amazing magical control and gave people an unfathomable feeling. Relatively speaking, although Mu Rong was not weak, he was only a believer in the strangeness of natural magic. It was almost impossible to win against Bing Yun. Blue light flickered around Bing Yun's body. Her expression was still as cold as ever, and she didn't say anything unnecessary. Mu Rong seemed a little nervous. As soon as Rong Fei announced the start of the match, he immediately waved the staff in his hand. Countless vines swept towards Bing Yun. It was the same method he used to deal with Feifei in the first match. Unfortunately, Bing Yun was not Feifei. A layer of frost appeared without warning, and a large amount of ice fog appeared around Bing Yun's body. Her body floated backwards, and she was already hidden in the ice fog. Mu Rong sneered. He thought to himself that as long as the other party's life existed, his nature magic would be able to detect it. Even if he couldn't see it with his eyes, it was enough to rely on his perception of life aura. While controlling the vines to rush into the icy mist, he chanted the incantation of his nature domain. Nature magic indeed had its own characteristic. In particular, its ability to detect life was incomparable to that of other types of magic. As soon as the vines entered the icy mist, they immediately locked onto Bing Yun's position and rushed towards Bing Yun in a frenzy. However, at this moment it suddenly snowed on the stage. Snowflakes the size of goose feathers surged out of the icy mist. Those weren't ordinary snowflakes. Every snowflake was like a sharp blade floating in the air. No matter how tough the vines were, they were still silk. The spinning snowflakes surged in the icy mist. When the snowflakes came into contact with the vines, the green vines immediately scattered to the ground. Mu Rong's heart ached. The vine staff was his treasure. With this staff, he had defeated many opponents of similar strength. How could he not feel heartache when he saw it being destroyed in the snowflakes? However, he didn't stop his actions. After all, the dark green gem at the core of the vine staff was still there. As long as it was there, it wouldn't be difficult to create a new vine staff. Now, the most important thing was to win this match. The snowflakes floating in the air spun rapidly. A snowstorm was gradually forming. Mu Rong recited an incantation as he retreated. His goal was simple. As long as he could delay until the nature domain was cast, he would succeed. Bing Yun slowly walked out of the icy mist. The snowstorm spun around her body. A faint cold light flashed in her eyes as she looked at Mu Rong. She didn't attack. Mu Rong looked at Bing Yun with some surprise. At this moment, his magic was finally completed. The dark green pearl floated to the ground, and the green light disappeared into the ground. Qianhuan Bingyun said indifferently, "If I don't let you use your proudest magic, I'm afraid you won't be satisfied with your loss. I want you to understand that the nature domain is ineffective in this world of ice." Mu Rong snorted coldly, "Is it really ineffective? My seed of life can change any side effect. Rise, my nature domain." The ground began to tremble. The seed of life sprouted in the ground. The scene from the first day of the tournament appeared once again. Countless green lights floated out, wrapping around every corner of the stage. At this moment, Bing Yun moved. A blue hexagram rose up from her legs, instantly filling the air around her. The temperature on the stage rapidly dropped, and the originally rapidly growing branches suddenly slowed down. Frozen Cloud placed her palms in front of her chest, her fingertips touching each other. A blue orb of light gradually grew larger, gradually condensing into a ball of light. Below the stage, Nian Bing said in surprise, "Level 8 ice magic, absolute freeze. No wonder she's so fearless." Absolute freeze was an ice magic that was neither offensive nor defensive. It was used for short distance flying like a snowstorm. This absolute freeze spell was usually used to make ice mages flustered when crossing an insurmountable chasm. Under the control of spiritual force, it could condense a section of space into ice, and then pass through the surface of the ice. The greatest advantage of this spell was its extreme cold. However, due to the limited range and the large amount of mana required, ice mages rarely used it. The blue ball of light floated into the ground, and the ground of the stage was instantly filled with a faint blue light. Even the branches that were sticking out of the ground froze in an instant. At this moment the blizzard moved. The frozen branches were cleansed by the blizzard, turning into ice powder that floated on the stage. The entire stage was filled with a layer of ice fog. Mu Rong stared at the scene in front of him, dumbfounded. The nature domain he was so proud of was broken just like that. Although he could still feel the presence of the seed of life, under the suppression of absolute freeze, unless the ice magic was removed, the nature domain wouldn't be able to display its true power. The snowstorm floated in front of Mu Rong and stopped. Bing Yun calmly said, "You should admit defeat." Mu Rong stared blankly at the snowstorm in front of him. His mana hadn't been completely depleted, and he still had the power to fight back. However, would the snowstorm in front of him give him time to chant a spell? Bing Yun frowned slightly. She didn't wait any longer. The snowstorm rushed forward, wrapped around Mu Rong's body, and sent him off the stage. The fire cloud barrier could only defend against magic. The snowstorm disappeared under the fire cloud barrier's filter, but Mu Rong's body also fell off the stage. The first match. It ended so quickly. Bing Yun calmly won the third match. At this point, her group matches were completely over. She sat firmly in the first place of the first group. Rong Bing nudged Nian Bing and whispered, "See? In front of ice and fire magic, nature magic is greatly restricted." Nian Bing nodded slightly, and a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She glanced at Mu Jing. Mu Jing frowned slightly. Looking at her dazed brother, a trace of disdain appeared in her eyes. Qianhuan Bingyun walked down from the stage. Her cold blue eyes fell on Nian Bing. Nian Bing's eyes met hers. Bingyun nodded at him, then turned around and walked to her own group. Nian Bing was a bit surprised. When Bingyun looked at him, there was a trace of friendliness in her cold eyes. The people of the Ice God Tower were friendly to him? Oh right. After all, both of them represented the Ice Moon Empire. Could it be that she was encouraging him to get the first place of the second group? The second match of the third day, the first group of the second group against the fifth group of the second group, please come on stage. As Rong Fei announced, Nian Bing and Mu Jing went on stage at the same time. Mu Jing was not affected by her brother's defeat. She looked at Nian Bing and curled her lips. "Are you planning to kill me today?" Nian Bing was stunned. He subconsciously swept his gaze across the audience. He realized that other than Bing Yun and Rong Bing, the other contestants were looking at him strangely. He immediately understood that they were resisting him because of his ruthlessness in the first match. After communicating with Feng Nu, the coldness in his heart had eased a lot. He smiled calmly and asked, "If I kill you, will your brother rush up?" "You?" Mu Jing's eyes were filled with anger. "Do you think I'm the same as those two pieces of trash from that day?" Nian Bing pretended to be surprised. "Didn't you see how your brother lost? How much stronger can you be compared to him?" Mu Jing said disdainfully, "Then who do you think you are? Don't tell me you're also from the Ice God Tower?" Rong Fei looked at Nian Bing and then looked at Mu Jing. He said unhappily, "Are you two here to compete or to chat?" Mu Jing said, "If you don't announce the start of the match, how can we compete?" Rong Fei snorted and said, "Okay, the match starts now." After saying that, he walked to the edge of the stage. Upon hearing the words "start of the match," Mu Jing seemed to have changed into a different person. Her dark green hair fluttered without wind, and her face became abnormally calm. The breath of life was naturally emitted, and a faint green light surrounded her body like ripples of water. Nian Bing also moved. She stretched out her hands and drew a triangle in front of her. The blue and red lights intertwined to form a strange hexagram. "Ice, you are the representation of cold. Fire, you are the source of heat. The breath of ice and fire. Please allow me to combine your characteristics, with your common source as a guide, resonate. Blue on the left and red on the right." Two rays of light rose from both sides of Nian Bing's body. He had finally used the origin of ice and fire that he was most proud of. The two magical elements of ice and fire continuously gathered around his body. At this moment, he could use the origin of ice and fire to make all kinds of changes in his magic. He chose to remain still when it came to natural magic that he was unfamiliar with. Mu Jing's eyes completely turned into two balls of green light. Her body floated up from the stage. Although she was only about a foot above the ground, she was now like a goddess from nature. Her whole body was filled with a strange breath. Below the stage, Mu Rong muttered to himself, "Brat, just wait for your death. My sister is the innate Earth Daughter. She is not someone you can deal with." When Nian Bing finished his incantation, Mu Jing's separated hands were already clasped in front of her. Rays of green light were emitted from her body. Suddenly, the light in her eyes brightened. Dozens of vines as thick as arms rushed towards Nian Bing. The vines' position was very clever. Not only did they attack Nian Bing, they also blocked all his escape route. So fast. Nian Bing was slightly surprised. With a flip of his hands, he directly condensed dozens of low-level ice and fireballs to meet the vines. With a loud bang, the sound of explosions rang out continuously. Every time, countless green fragments were brought up. The explosive power of the ice and fireballs destroyed the vines one by one. Nian Bing was forced back several steps by the shockwaves from the explosions. However, he discovered that Mu Jing was still floating in the air. When the shockwaves reached her body, they were all dissolved by the layer of green light. Nian Bing knew that he could not wait any longer. With a flash of light, the proud heaven blade appeared in his hand. His arm instantly turned into an illusion. The proud heaven blade's wind blade technique transformed into dozens of wind blades that floated out. They attacked Mu Jing from different angles. At the same time, Nian Bing channeled the power of ice and fire into the proud heaven blade. Naturally, a soft hum appeared. Mu Jing did not pay any attention to the wind blades. Because her eyes had already turned into two balls of green light, it was impossible to see her expression. Her hands that were clasped in front of her chest did not change. However, countless vines and vines began to drill out from the ground behind her. they continuously condensed and intertwined. When the wind blades came into contact with the green light, just like the previous shock waves, they disappeared without a sound. The disappearance of the wind blades did not surprise Nian Bing too much. What surprised him was the vines and plants that were continuously growing behind Mu Jing's back. That was clearly the nature domain that Mu Rong had used before. However, Mu Jing did not chant any incantations. How could a spell that was at least at the 7th rank be used so easily? Mu Jing opened her mouth. Water, fire, earth and wind all originate from nature. In my Gaia domain, these are all ineffective. Unless you use a spell that is at least 2 ranks higher than my Gaia domain, there is no way you can break my domain. However, my Gaia domain is a spell at the 8th rank. Do you have the strength of an archmage? Even if you do, I will not give you the chance to chant an incantation. Although I don't know why you can use ice, fire and wind magic, I admire your magic ability. If you admit defeat now, I will let you live. If it weren't for your ice and fire elemental magic, I wouldn't have used my domain so early. This was originally reserved for 1000 Illusion Ice Cloud. Below the stage, Bing Yun's eyes exploded with 2 balls of light. She muttered to herself, Gaia domain is an innate domain. Rong Bing, who was standing beside Bing Yun, could not help but tremble when he heard her words. He subconsciously asked, does an innate domain really exist? Bing Yun glanced at Rong Bing. She did not speak and only nodded slightly. On the stage, Nian Bing looked at Mu Jing and said somewhat strangely, You won't kill me? Don't you want to avenge your subordinates? Mu Jing smiled indifferently and said, I don't know if you are smart or stupid. Since you have seen my Gaia domain, do you think that your ice and fire magic can still kill a sea? You are underestimating me too much. Nian Bing frowned slightly and said, So that's how it is. However, there is one thing I hope you can understand. In my dictionary, there is no such thing as admitting defeat. If you want to win this match, then make your move. Mu Jing's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled slightly, stubborn. Since that is the case, then fine. A green light flashed, and her graceful body retreated into the layers of vines behind her. The vines quickly changed and condensed into a 5-zhang tall green giant. Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. Even though he had a very high estimation of Mu Jing's strength before the competition, the strength that Mu Jing had displayed had still far exceeded his expectations. This domain that could be created naturally without chanting an incantation was definitely not easy to deal with. The Hulk moved. His huge foot stomped hard on the stage, making a roaring sound. His thick arms waved at the same time, and hundreds of vines shot out. They attacked Nian Bing. Under the effect of ice and fire, the wind blades were amplified to the 3rd level, like flowers blooming to meet the Hulk's attack. However, Ling Nian Bing was shocked. At this time, the vines were no longer the same as before. The wind blades could only leave faint traces on the vines, but they could not stop the crazy attack. At the critical moment, real combat experience saved Nian Bing. A silver hexagram appeared around his body. Light flashed. The place where he was originally standing issued a dense roar. Mu Jing's surprised voice sounded, You really surprised me. Spatial magic. Nian Bing did not have time to answer at this time. He couldn't care less about hiding anything. He bit the hilt of the 4 stars saber and quickly put away the proud heaven saber. In an instant, red and blue light filled the stage. The sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god finally appeared. Cries of surprise could be heard from both the stage and the audience. Rong Fei, Rong Ji Bingyun, and the others were the ones who cried out in surprise. Although it was only for an instant, they all recognized the aura of the ice goddess stone and the fire god stone. Prince Rong, who was sitting next to Emperor Hua Tian, frowned. He whispered, It's actually a magician with an innate domain. The Hulk's reaction was very fast. Countless green lights covered the sky and rushed towards Nian Bing, relying on the short-distance teleportation ability of the 4 stars saber. Eternal Ice Soul, infernal demonic flames, I summon you as the master of the same origin of ice and fire. Turn into solidified ice and solidified fire. Merge in the extreme, release in the surging, steady ice. Raging fire, with your common origin as the foundation, turn into an unchanging force of destruction. Destroy all life. The ice and fire demonic tribulation has been broken. Nian Bing didn't stop chanting. She relied on the ever-changing six lights. His figure constantly flashed between the gaps of the vines. Even if the vines covered the entire stage, it was impossible for there to be no gaps. Nian Bing was looking for opportunities between the gaps. Almost every time he chanted a word or two, his body would need to use short-distance teleportation to change his position. However, he could not change his position. His voice was always low as he continued to chant the spell. Peng. When Nian Bing finished chanting the last word, his movements became sluggish. He was suddenly struck by a vine, his body tumbling in the air. However, Nian Bing's face revealed a trace of a smile. After all, the spell was completed. The thick vines did not let go of this opportunity. Nian Bing's body was wrapped around like a huge dumpling. Only the red and blue hexagram remained. Mu Jing, who was hidden in the Gaia domain, suddenly felt a sense of unease. Under her control, the Hulk's huge fists immediately smashed towards Nianbing's body. However, at this moment, no one could stop the legendary magician of the same origin of ice and fire from unleashing his might. The red and blue hexagram suddenly became incomparably dazzling. The vines that wrapped around Nian Bing's body lit up with two dazzling stars, one blue and one red. The ice came from the outside in, while the fire came from the inside out. Although the Gaia domain could devour all natural energy, it could not adapt to the collision of two extreme energies. Nian Bing's body, which was lifted high in the air, floated down, just in time to avoid the Hulk's fatal blow. The red flames turned into condensed demonic flames. The blue light also fluctuated like flames. The red and blue flames revolved around Nian Bing's body and rose up. Although their auras were completely opposite, although their energies were completely opposite, at this moment, under the effect of the hexagram of the same origin of ice and fire under Nian Bing's feet, they appeared to be so harmonious. Nian Bing held the sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god in his hands, facing the ice goddess stone and the fire god stone outwards. A strange scene happened. His eyes turned red and blue. He roared towards the sky, and the aura of ice and fire actually repelled the vines that came after him. If Mu Jing represented the Gaia goddess, who symbolized nature and life, then Nian Bing represented the demon god who destroyed everything. He was roaring, he was roaring. Release, demonic tribulation of ice and fire is broken. Tornadoes aren't necessarily formed by wind. Ice and fire fuse together to form an incredibly dazzling landscape. Leading the way was the red and blue light, and leading the way was an incredibly domineering aura. They gathered together to form a gigantic ice and fire tornado that was almost 5 feet in diameter. With the two supreme gray gemstones as the starting point, and Nian Bing's ice and fire as the trigger, it erupted. Their target was the Hulk's chest. Everyone's eyes focused at this moment. Even Prince Rong did not expect this. In such a disadvantageous situation, Nian Bing was still able to release such a powerful magic. What he used was not a combination of ice and fire magic, but true ice and fire magic. Even the incantation was not something that ice or fire magic had. Prince Rong thought of the guidance he gave to Nian Bing. His eyes suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. He thought to himself, "This kid understands really fast." Boom! In the violent explosion, the fire cloud barrier formed by 100 great magicians trembled violently. The magicians had no choice but to cast a spell to stabilize the barrier. On the stage, the incomparably huge Hulk's body completely stopped, and Nian Bing's ice flame demon tribulation seemed to have merged with his body and disappeared. Nian Bing stood on the ground. His mind was dizzy. The 23 times he went to the toilet still had a big impact on his body. At this time, after using such a powerful magic, the consumption of his spiritual power and physical strength was somewhat unbearable. But he knew that he could not relax yet, so he took in deep breath. At the same time, he gathered his magical power. The Hulk's body seemed to have solidified, standing there motionless. The vines that made up his body at this time were more like rocks, and his body stood there silently. "No, this is impossible. You can't break my Earth Goddess domain." Mu Jing's voice sounded from all directions on the stage. Her voice was full of unwillingness. At this time, cracks began to appear on the Hulk's chest. The cracks continued to extend and widen, and the countless cracks had spread to every corner of the Hulk's body in the blink of an eye. At this moment, two words emerged in everyone's mind: collapse. Red and blue lights swirled around Nian Bing's body. Nian Bing cautiously watched the solidified Hulk, quickly gathered the magical power in his body, and at the same time withdrew his 4 stars blade. The cracks that continued to appear on the Hulk's body gradually lit up. It was a red and blue luster. Cracking sounds gradually sounded, and the Hulk's body began to peel off, turning into a fine powder that drifted down. Boom! The fire barrier once again shook violently. The whole Hulk completely collapsed in an instant, and the originally powerful life force on the stage was overturned. Everything returned to normal. Mu Jing's face was somewhat pale as she appeared 70 feet in front of Nian Bing, her eyes full of unwillingness. "How did you do it? My Earth Goddess domain can clearly devour all the energy you emit." Nian Bing smiled indifferently. "Yes, your domain is very magical. Any magical element that belongs to the aura of nature will be devoured by it. But you said before that if my attack can surpass your domain by more than 2 levels, I can completely destroy it. Of course, I still don't have the strength of an archmage, and if I release a single spell, I can only release an 8th level attack. But, although your magic is magical, my ice and fire magic has its own characteristic. Perhaps you should feel honored that this is the first time I have used the Ice Demon Tribulation spell since I developed it. This is a fusion spell based on ice and fire, and the power it can release has reached the 9th level of the limit of an archmage. Ice and fire, when released alone, belong to the domain of nature magic, but the ice and fire magic has exceeded this domain. 2 types of extreme energy appeared at the same time. The cold of ice and the scorching of fire burst out at the same time, invading your Earth Goddess domain. Although the power is not at the 10th level, the destructive power of the aura of nature is comparable to that of the 10th level. So, your domain is finished. Are you satisfied with this detail? Mu Jing's pretty face showed a trace of a bitter smile, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and said miserably, Good, ice and fire magic, an extreme collision, I have lost. Goddess Gaia's domain is one with the wood crystal. Now that her domain has been broken, whether it's her spiritual power or her body, she's been seriously injured. Although she still has her magic power, she no longer has the ability to use it in battle. Nian Bing's face showed a trace of a sincere smile. Mu Jing's strength had gained his respect. Frankly speaking, I won this match by a narrow margin. After all, this is a competition stage, and there is a boundary formed by the fire cloud cover, so your Earth Goddess domain is unable to display its full power. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for me to break it. Moreover, you didn't directly attack me from the start. If my guess is correct, in the Earth Goddess domain, you can display your nature magic to the limit. If that's the case, it's hard to say who will win between us. A trace of surprise appeared in Mu Jing's eyes. The Nian Bing in front of her didn't seem so annoying. She glanced at the ice and fire dual blades in his hands and said, I think we will still have a chance. Goodbye, when we get there, we will determine the winner. I am not a sore loser. You can use 4 types of magic, so the Earth Goddess domain can't completely control you. If we go all out, we will only have a 50% chance. Nian Bing nodded subconsciously. He was very interested in Mu Jing's strange domain, but now that the match was over, he didn't dare to ask too much. Rong Fei had already walked to the center of the competition stage. "Do you still want to continue the match?" Although he asked, his eyes fell on the Xingyang blade in Nian Bing's hands. Mu Jing shook her head and said, "I admit defeat. Nian Bing, I can't move now. Can I trouble you to help me down?" Nian Bing didn't even look at Rong Fei. He put the blade in his space ring and walked in front of Mu Jing. He didn't reach out to help Mu Jing. The ice and fire hexagram under his feet lit up, and he muttered a low incantation. With a flip of his left wrist, a huge holy brilliance blade appeared in his hand. He raised his other hand and pressed it in front of Mu Jing. "Bastard, what are you doing?" Mu Rong thought that Nian Bing was going to kill Mu Jing, so he quickly ran to the competition stage. However, he was a magician. How could he run faster than Nian Bing? Mu Jing looked at Nian Bing in surprise. All kinds of complicated thoughts flashed through her mind. At this moment, a faint golden light condensed in Nian Bing's hand. The holy brilliance blade emitted a dazzling light. Through the ice and fire hexagram, it continuously transferred the aura of light into Nian Bing's body. The faint golden light enveloped Mu Rong's body when Mu Jing stepped onto the competition stage. Chapter 109. Rong Fei didn't stop Nian Bing's actions, because Prince Rong had told him not to interfere with Nian Bing's actions. Mu Rong stopped in his tracks and looked at Nian Bing in astonishment. At this time, Mu Jing had already closed her eyes, and her beautiful face revealed a gentle and tranquil aura. Bathed in the light, a trace of redness gradually appeared on her originally pale face. Rank 5 light healing magic continuously nourished Mu Jing's body. Nian Bing put away her holy radiance blade and pressed her other hand on Mu Jing's forehead. An icy aura appeared, but this time it wasn't cold ice. With the help of the fire, the ice turned into gentle water, and followed the light, revolving around Mu Jing's body. Mu Jing opened her eyes, and her beautiful eyes were filled with astonishment. "My domain seems to have recovered. How did it recover so quickly?" Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "Light is the help of all life, and also the tonic of your nature magic. And water is the source of life. Through the nourishment of light and water, what's impossible?" Mu Jing revealed a trace of a bitter smile. "Light, what a good light. This is already the 5th magic you've used. Don't tell me you're an all-elemental magician. That's too inconceivable." Nian Bing shook her head and said, "No, I'm not an all-elemental magician, at least not yet. Alright, I think you can walk down on your own now." Mu Jing's body had already completely recovered with the help of 2 types of healing magic. Apart from her weak mental strength, she was already fine. The two walked down the stage together. When Nian Bing passed by Mu Rong, the expression on Mu Rong's face was very colorful. There was confusion, astonishment, surprise, and appreciation. The 3rd day of the new Star Magician tournament ended like this, but the matter wasn't over yet. Almost everyone's eyes fell on her. As the saying goes, treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Nian Bing successively displayed 5 magic blades. When using magic, the aura of horses couldn't be suppressed. Who could resist the temptation of top-grade magic gems? In particular, the sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god attracted the intense attention of the Rong family and Qianhuan Bingyun. After the Han Emperor Hua Tian announced the reward of 100 purple coins, Rong Fei said, "Today's competition ends here. We'll continue tomorrow. Magician Nianbing, please stay for a while. The others can leave." Bingyun glanced at Nianbing. Nianbing turned around and left with Nianbing. Mu Rong's departure. The other magicians followed behind them. Only Nianbing, Rongbing, and Rongji were left. Emperor Hua Tian stood up from his seat. The divine stone of fire was once Prince Rong's most precious treasure. How could he not recognize it? He patted Prince Rong's shoulder and said, "Elder Rong, I'll leave this matter to you. No matter what you decide, I won't object." After he finished speaking, he led the hundreds of officials away from the other side of the Hall of Trials. His meaning was clear. Even if Prince Rong killed Nian Bing and took back the stone, there was nothing wrong with it. He wouldn't interfere. Hua Tian wasn't afraid of offending the Ice Moon Empire. Moreover, Nian Bing only represented the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Guild. Under Rong Fei's signal, the hundreds of fire mages also left the Hall of Trials. Only a few people were left in the vast Hall of Trials. Prince Rong slowly walked over to Nian Bing's group from the side of the stage. Rong Fei also walked down from the stage. Nian Bing calmly looked at them, her face expressionless. Rong Bing was also very restless. Prince Rong already knew that Nian Bing had the Stone of Fire. Even if she didn't use it today, Nian Bing wouldn't use it. He would use it sooner or later in the competition. Rong Fei looked at Nian Bing and said, "Where did you get the Stone of Fire?" His tone was very impolite. After all, the Stone of Fire was the Rong family's heirloom. If it wasn't for the fact that Emperor Hua Tian was present during the competition, he wouldn't have been able to stand it. At this moment, he no longer had any misgivings. Nian Bing calmly said, "I'm representing the Ice Moon Empire in this competition. Do I need to answer your question?" Rong Fei's eyes flashed coldly. "Don't forget that this is the Huarong Empire. Although your magic is strange, it's nothing to me." Nian Bing didn't say anything. She only looked at Prince Rong. Prince Rong raised his hand, stopping Rong Fei from continuing. "Nian Bing, I'll do it. Ah Fei, don't tell anyone about what happened today, especially within the family. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences." Rong Fei was stunned. He naturally didn't expect Prince Rong to say something like this. "Big brother, he's holding the Stone of Fire." Prince Rong glared at him. "I'm not that old yet. I can see what you can see. No need to say anything more. Come find me tonight." If there was anyone who could make Fire Archmage Rong Fei afraid, it would be his big brother. Ever since he was young, no one had been able to shake his position in the Rong family. Sighing, Prince Rong lowered his head and didn't say anything else. He turned and walked out of the hall. Nian Bing also had something to ask him, so she followed him out of the hall. Looking at their departing figures, Rong Fei frowned and muttered to himself, "When Tian took the Stone of Fire away from the Rong family, there was no news about it. Why did it suddenly appear? Could it be that this Nian Bing brat is related to Rong Tian? Nian Bing, ah! I remember now. Rong Tian and that little demon from the Ice God Tower had a bastard child called Nian Bing? Could it be?" Rong Bing heard this and was instantly enraged. "Third Grandpa, what is a bastard child?" "Nian Bing is Uncle Tian's son, and also a member of the Rong family. How can he be a bastard child?" Rong Fei raised his head, a light flashing in his eyes. "Bing, I see that you are very close to that little brat. Did you know his identity long ago?" Rong Bing said calmly, "You should ask Grandpa about this." "Third Grandpa, I'm a little tired. I'll go back first." After saying that, he turned and walked out of the hall. "Wait, I'll keep walking with you." Rong Ji called out to Rong Bing and followed him. Before the two of them walked out of the hall, Rong Ji turned and said to Rong Fei, "Third Grandpa, if that Nian Bing is really Uncle Tian's son, then he is not a bastard child." After saying that, the two of them walked out of the hall. Rong Fei stood in the hall. He wasn't surprised by Rong Bing's attitude. After all, Rong Bing's father, Rong Yu, and Nian Bing's father, Zhan Tian, were twins. However, Rong Ji's reaction surprised him. Rong Ji was the most outstanding descendant of his and second brother's branch. How could he bend his arm to an outsider? That little brat called Nian Bing's magic was so strange. If Big Brother really acknowledged his identity, he was afraid that he and second brother's branch would have no chance in the competition for the next generation. "No, I have to go back and discuss this with second brother." Thinking of this, Rong Fei walked out of the hall. Nian Bing followed Prince Rong to a quiet room in the palace. Prince Rong sat down at the head of the table. He pointed to the chair beside him and said, "You also sit." Nian Bing calmly sat down beside him. His body was weak, and he was indeed feeling tired from the previous battle. "You already know about me, why did you ask me to come?" Prince Rong said indifferently. "Brat, don't you think you're showing off too much? Today, including Hua Tian and Su Yu, your performance has attracted everyone's attention. I'm afraid that anyone would covet the magic factory inlaid on the 5 top-grade magic blades. How are you going to deal with it? Perhaps it's nothing now. However, after the competition is over, anything can happen." Nian Bing looked at Prince Rong. After Prince Rong took out the longevity blade as the prize, and after Rong Bing and Feng Nu's consolation, the hatred in his heart had faded a lot. Only his hatred for the Ice God Tower was still strong. After all, the person in front of him was his own grandfather. "Then what do you think I should do? There will naturally be changes, but it's not difficult for me to leave the capital." Prince Rong's face revealed a rare smile. "Are you going to use your appearance similar to Rong Bing's? This is indeed a way, but it can only keep you safe for the time being. Once this matter is exposed, not to mention outsiders, there will be many people in the Rong family who want to kill you." Nian Bing looked at Prince Rong with some surprise and said, "Since you know about the internal strife of the family, why didn't you deal with it earlier? Otherwise, the Rong family will be in chaos from now on." Prince Rong's eyes revealed a deep light. He leaned back in his chair and said, "What you can see, I can naturally see. The reason why I didn't ask about it was because I didn't want the Rong family to decline. The Rong family is very prosperous now, but it doesn't mean that it will always be so. When one day Hua Tian is no longer here, and I am no longer here, everything will change. Ever since the Huarong Empire gradually became powerful, the Rong family has always been at the peak of power. All the armies of the empire are under my control. In comparison, Su Yu is much more low-key. Although he is the prime minister of the empire, he rarely takes the initiative to appear in public. Su Yu is the smartest person I have ever met. Smart people naturally have their own reasons for doing things. Do you know what it means to be the tallest tree in the forest to be blown away by the wind? There are too many eyes on the Rong family. The stronger the Rong family is, the closer it is to collapse. Once I go, the Rong family will face a disaster." Nian Bing's brain was spinning rapidly. What she didn't understand was why Prince Rong said this to her. What do these have to do with the internal strife of the Rong family? Prince Rong said, "Of course it has to do with it. In my heart, there is no such thing as ordinary. Fighting is not a bad thing. Regardless of whether it is an internal or external struggle, how can one fight without strength? The Rong family is now divided into 2 factions, but their strength is very balanced. In order to find a way to suppress the other side, they must work hard to improve their strength. Even if the Rong family is divided one day, or is pressured by other sides, as long as the Rong family is strong enough, it doesn't matter if the Rong family is divided. Do you understand what I mean?" Nian Bing's body trembled. He looked at Prince Rong in shock. He had said it so clearly. If he still didn't understand, he would be a fool. But Prince Rong stopped him. "No buts. I won't change my mind. Whether you admit it or not, my blood flows in your veins. You don't have to get involved in the Rong family's affairs. As long as I am alive, nothing will happen. However, for the future of the Rong family, I want you to promise me one thing. I hope you can become a deterrent like the Ice Goddess, a true powerhouse in the Yangon continent. Then, no matter what happens to the Rong family in the future, anyone who mentions the word Rong will have scruples." Hearing Prince Rong's words, Nian Bing calmed down. "Becoming a powerhouse in the Yangon continent has always been my goal. Even if you didn't say it, I would still try my best to achieve it. However, why should I serve the Rong family? Who am I to the Rong family? I am just an outsider. What has the Rong family given me since I was a child? It is already good enough that I didn't take revenge on the Rong family. Why should I help them? Prince Rong's eyes shone brightly. What has the Rong family given you? Is the word life enough? Without the Rong family, would your father exist? Without your father, would you have crawled out of the ground? Even if the Rong family has wronged you and your father, the Rong family has given you life. I know you are unconvinced and have deep resentment in your heart. I can see it from your performance on the first day of the competition. Naturally, I won't ask you to help the Rong family unconditionally. I can promise you a few things. First of all, as long as you agree to my conditions, although I won't support you with the power of the Rong family, I will do my best to help you reach the top of the magic path. At the same time, I can promise you that no matter what happens to the Rong family in the future, Rong Yu and Rong Bing will definitely be the main branch of the Rong family. You only need to protect this branch. I think you should know that when your father left with you and the Stone of Fire, his name was removed from the Rong family. Your father has always valued honor very much. You are not like him in this aspect. At least, no matter what, he was always proud of being a member of the Rong family. Although he has already passed away, if he knows that he can return to the Rong family, I think he will be very happy. As his son, don't you want to help your father fulfill his wish? Nian Bing was tempted. She had followed her father to leave the Rong family when she was 6 years old. Every time her father mentioned the Rong family, his expression would become gloomy. He had no choice but to leave the Rong family. However, his father had always told her that if there was a chance in the future to bring honor to the Rong family, she would definitely return to the Rong family. Prince Rong saw through his son very clearly. Every condition that his son mentioned was something that he wanted very much. However, would he really agree to protect the Rong family in the future? If he did, it would be equivalent to admitting that he was a member of the Rong family. Looking at the hesitant Nian Bing, Prince Rong said indifferently, I have lived for almost 90 years. To me, life is just a form of existence. I have seen through life long ago. I have many children in my life, but only 2 of them are the most outstanding. They are your father and Rong Yu. Rong Yu is resourceful and knows how to hide his abilities. No matter how you look at it, he is my most ideal successor. He has a long-term vision. Not only did he secretly develop his own strength, he also raised an outstanding son. Other than letting your father go, he has never disappointed me. Compared to Rong Yu, your father is much weaker. However, do you know? He is the most like me when I was young. He is too emotional. If he had half of Rong Yu's rationality, he definitely wouldn't have chosen to marry your mother. When Rong Tian and Rong Yu were 10 years old, I had already seen through their personalities. From a selfish point of view, I want to pass the Rong family to Rong Tian. Looking at him is like looking at me when I was young. Your grandmother, Rong Tian and Rong Yu's mother, was only 20 years old when she died. At that time, Rong Yu and his brother were only 2 years old. Your grandmother died in the chaos of war. It was because of the grief and indignation at that time that I formed an alliance with Hua Tian and Su Yu. Later on, I founded the Huarong Empire. However, when everything calmed down and I thought about it, what did I gain? The hatred and regret in my heart still existed. Power is nothing to me. Who can understand the loneliness in my heart? I strongly opposed your parents' marriage because I didn't want your father to follow my path. Reality proved that I was right. Their marriage only brought pain. After your mother was captured by the ice goddess, I was extremely disappointed in your father. Looking at his depressed appearance, I hated him for not living up to my expectations. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. In the end, he still walked my path. Family matters can't be explained clearly. It's normal for you to hate me and the Rong family. After all, Rong Bing and the others can't compare to what you've been through since you were a child. I also know that you've suffered a lot. However, people have to look forward. Once the past is over, don't look back. I have my own plans for your father. Although hatred can be a driving force for you to move forward, it can also be a hindrance. You have to think about this clearly. Controlling your hatred well is very important for your future development. After I've settled the matters of the Rong family, I'll make a trip to the Ice God Tower. At that time, you can come with me. Nian Bing's heart was in a mess. All kinds of complicated and chaotic emotions were surging in her heart. You're going to the Ice God Tower? Prince Rong glanced at him and said, My son is dead. If I still don't show up, my nickname of Flaming Lion King will be in vain. 1 year after the end of this competition, come back to the Rong family and find me. I'll take you to the Ice God Tower. As I said before, death isn't scary. As early as the year your grandmother passed away, I had already prepared myself for death. However, I didn't expect that I'd still live to such an old age. To be able to die in the hands of the greatest opponent in your life isn't a bad thing. I hope that the battle between God-bestowed masters can make you understand something. Nian Bing lowered his head and stared blankly at the ground. Prince Rong didn't disturb him. He just looked at him in silence, waiting for his decision. After a long while, Nian Bing raised his head. His eyes were already bloodshot. Okay, I agree to your conditions. The last 2 words were a bit difficult to say, but it represented his determination. Ha 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 ha. Prince Rong raised his head and laughed out loud. His laughter was so loud that the window frame trembled slightly. Good, good, good. I didn't misjudge you. One day, you'll definitely become an existence that surpasses me. After Nian Bing called him Grandpa, it meant that he had already accepted his identity as a member of the Rong family. Looking at the happy Prince Rong, Nian Bing's chaotic heart gradually calmed down. Can life and death really be treated so lightly? He asked the question that had been in his mind for a long time. The laughter stopped. What is life? What is death? As long as it's worth dying, so what? If my death can exchange for a new guardian for the Rong family, then it's worth it. Prince Rong's eyes shone with joy. Maybe you're wondering why I chose you. In fact, you being Rong Tian's son is only one of the reasons. More importantly, it's because of your talent in magic. That day, when you fought me, I saw your future. You're also the hope of the Rong family. That's why I put forward these conditions. I'm sure that I didn't misjudge you. Although the future is still a bit far away, a few decades of life will pass in the blink of an eye. Alright, I've finished talking about my business. Now it's your turn. I think you must have a lot of questions about today's competition. Feel free to ask. As long as I know, I'll tell you without reservation. This is for you. He threw a red jade stone to Nianbing. Nianbing caught it and looked at it. It was a lion carved from the finest red jade. A fiery red light was flowing around it, as if there was a flame rising inside the jade stone. Prince Rong said, Take it. You can go to any corner of the Rong family as you wish. No one will dare to stop you. It represents me. What Prince Rong didn't say was that this red jade lion with a magical aura was also a keepsake of the Rong family's patriarch. Nian Bing silently put the red jade lion into her space ring. She took a deep breath and calmed her surging emotions. She said, Grandpa, I want to know about all of Mu Jing's domains today. Prince Rong smiled faintly and said, I knew you would ask this question. A domain was originally created by a magician. It was the most suitable area for them to use their magic. It could also be said that it was the area covered by magic. According to the characteristics of a magician's domain, it could be divided into many types. A domain was usually created by magic, so it could also be said to be a special kind of magic. For example, Mu Rong from the Longmu Empire, the nature domain he used belonged to this category. To put it more simply, you could think of a domain as a magic formation that was cast through magic incantations. In this magic formation, a magician's strength would be greatly increased. Domains were generally divided into 3 types. The first type was the psychedelic type. The second type was the offensive type, and the third type was the amplification type. Mu Rong's domain belonged to the second type, the offensive type. It contained the characteristics of nature magic, and had special effects against light and water magicians. Although the power of this domain was not bad, he was still not mature enough in its application. If his magic power could reach the level of a magic shooter, its power would be greatly increased. The Ice God Tower Girl's domain was much more powerful. From an intrinsic point of view, it was a clever combination of three types of domains. It contained the effects of psychedelia, attack, and amplification. By relying on the ingenious combination, it could fully display its good characteristic. If she had not underestimated Rong Bing that day, her domain would not have been broken. If you want to break that 1000 illusion domain, I'm afraid it's not enough to rely on the same origin of ice and fire. However, as long as you can use the fusion of magic well, there's still a chance. There's still a chance. No one can give you pointers on the tactics of the competition. Only through the sharpening of battle will you have a deeper understanding of the application of magic. Nian Bing nodded subconsciously as he continued to ponder the situation. Prince Rong's explanation of domains was much more detailed than Rong Bing's, and also gave her a deeper understanding of domains. After a pause, Prince Rong continued, "What I've said before is just to set the stage and let you have some understanding of domains. Magical domains. To every mage, a domain was their most precious possession. Therefore, there were very few records of domains in books. Only through constant practice could one learn about them. Only through constant training can one display a domain that suits one. You're not bad. You're young, but you've already cultivated to the level of a magic shooter. You can even create your own magic incantations. In this regard, you're already better than me when I was young. You must listen carefully to what I'm about to say. It's very important for your future magic path. You must be very confused as to why that girl who competed with you today could use a domain equivalent to an 8th grade spell without chanting an incantation. And it's a very special domain." Nian Bing nodded and said, "This is my biggest question. Can 8th grade spells be cast instantaneously? I'm afraid that even a God's Descent master can't do that. Mu Jing can instantaneously cast a domain equivalent to an 8th grade spell. Then, if she were not on the stage, who would be able to resist her instantaneously cast a domain equivalent to an 8th grade spell? I'm already very lucky to have one today." Prince Rong smiled and said, "Calmness is very important for a magician. You're very good. To be able to think of a problem after winning shows that you're very mature. That's right, even a God's Descent master can't instantaneously cast an 8th grade spell. Today that girl used a domain. From a certain point of view, it's no longer in the category of magic, because that's her innate domain." Nian Bing was shocked. "Innate domain? What's an innate domain?" Prince Rong sighed softly and said, "Even I didn't expect to see an innate domain master in this competition. The probability of an innate domain appearing is very small. It refers to the ability that humans are born with under certain circumstances. This kind of innate ability naturally doesn't require any incantations to activate. As long as the owner wills it, it will naturally be able to be displayed. There are very few people who have an innate domain, and most innate domains only have very ordinary characteristics and can't display any powerful effect. I don't know if your luck is too good or too bad, but your opponent today not only has an innate domain, but also an innate domain that can both attack and defend. It's filled with the aura of nature and can evolve. Her domain can not only devour natural magic energy, but it can also be used to attack and defend. It's very powerful and has a very wide range of applications. Fortunately, you have a lot of variations in magic, and she didn't go all out in the beginning, which gave you a chance. The most frightening thing about this kind of innate domain is that it can evolve. No matter if the person who has this domain is a warrior or a magician, the domain will continue to improve along with their strength. If she's now an archmage, even I won't be able to defeat her easily. However, looking at her appearance, it shouldn't have been too long since her innate domain awakened. She still can't fully display the mysteries of the domain. The Longmu Empire has really produced a treasure this time. Nianbing said, Grandfather, then how many people have this kind of innate domain that can evolve? Is there no way to deal with this kind of magician? How can one defend against such a strong domain that can be instantly released? Prince Rong smiled slightly and said, Nothing is absolute. Although an innate domain is powerful, it can't be maintained for long. Moreover, after an innate domain appears, it takes up a lot of energy from the human body. It's very difficult to increase one's strength, especially to evolve the domain. Therefore, if you meet an innate domain that you can't contend against, delay as much as you can. You don't have an innate domain, but don't you even have magic scrolls? As long as you can use magic scrolls to defend yourself, you should be able to use powerful offensive magic. Unless you meet a strange innate domain like today, you should be able to contend against it. Therefore, you have to put more effort into making magic scrolls. Although using scrolls doesn't do much for magic, they are good things to protect your life. A magician's weak body usually needs to rely on magic scrolls to protect itself. Even at the level of the Snow Goddess Priestess, and I don't dare to say that we don't have any magic scrolls on us. Otherwise, if we meet a powerful assassin, wouldn't all our efforts go to waste? However, you don't have to worry too much about an innate domain expert. There are less than 30 evolved innate domain experts that can reach the level of a magic shooter. As far as I know, there's only one that can reach the level of a magic shooter. You know this person as well, it's the Snow Goddess Priestess. What? The Snow Goddess Priestess is also an innate domain expert? Nianbing looked at Prince Rong in shock. A God's Descent Master was already very powerful, but she was also an innate domain expert. Was there any hope for her revenge? Prince Rong smiled calmly and said, What? Are you scared? The Snow Goddess Priestess is a monster. I've seen her innate domain before. Fortunately, it's only a support-type innate domain. Otherwise, no one on the continent would be able to contend against her. Once she uses her domain, everything within a radius of 1,000 feet will become a world of ice and snow, allowing her magic to display its maximum power. Although her innate domain doesn't have much of a stronger effect, it's precisely because of its support-type abilities that she was able to quickly increase her strength and reach the level of a God's Descent Master. That's why it's said that there are two sides to everything. There's no such thing as absolutely bad or absolutely good. Oh right, have you heard of the Land of Gods?